Everybody was looking forward to the unstoppable force versus the immovable object.
He's got a counter move.
Edey with the left hand.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Gillis, a good passer and pick and pop. Smith
Upstairs! Jumbo jam, Zach Edey!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
UConn's got to get moving on the offensive end. Nice steal here. Smith. Nice pass.
Diarra lays it in.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Diarra, feed it.
Nice pass.
Turn, Diarra, blocked by Edey.
A body block. Nice look.
Oh, perfect pass, Lawyer, denied. It's Caravan.
What a hustle play.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Handoff, Newton on the move. Drive and kick. Caravan, contact, no call. Spencer penetrates and the scoop goes. Camtastic.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Caravan using the Klingon screen. Feed it.
Replace.
Castle. Got a three.
They do that as well as anybody in the country.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
I forgot to change the open. I just found that out right now. Did everything else right today, but I didn't do that. They are off on wedding duty, Garrett.
Yep.
So that leaves you and me here to captain the ship for the next 2 days before Jennifer walks down that aisle. And look, if you're expecting a nuanced show full of multiple topics, today's not your day.
No, not at all.
We've got a couple different things that we will get to, of course. But really, the big news in sports and the big news in college basketball today is that Scott Drew is staying at Baylor. He has spurned Kentucky. And let's just have a moment of silence for all those people that said, well, Scott Drew will go to Kentucky in a minute. Okay, that's enough.
That's enough, yeah. Plenty.
It's not. And the reason is that the grass is not always greener on the other side. And so here's what we know. A plane left Waco and went to Lexington yesterday. Mm-hmm. While that plane was in the air, Scott Drew was having lunch with his friend Eric Shiro, the CEO of Alliance Bank, big-time booster. And they were eating at Mi Casita. And Mi Casita did, in fact, get a lot of phone calls from Big Blue Nation trying to get to Scott Drew. That plane that did not have Scott Drew on it came back and landed in Temple. That plane did have his family on it. Then this morning, Scott Drew informed Kentucky that he was not taking that job. So here's how I will connect the dots for you. Clearly, his family is a huge part of this.
Yes.
As it should be. And there's a lot going on here that I think they don't want to leave. You know, he's got kids in high school, which if you were watching the triple option earlier, and shame on you if you weren't. I kid, but please do watch it.
Yes, watch.
We want you to watch it. I won't shame you much.
Yet.
But if it goes on much longer, then I'll, Garrett and I will find you. And then we're going to plop Jack in your house to do work and complain about things. And you don't want that. Nobody wants
No,
that.
you don't want those problems.
Nobody wants that problem. Nobody wants those problems. So, it's a really hard time to move kids when they're in high school.
Yes.
Little kids, you may miss your little friend, but when you're in high school, you are really established. You think you know what your life is.
Right, exactly.
It's not what you think it is.
Not at all.
But you think you know what your life is. And so that's a factor. And just Look, Ashley Hodge told us on 2 different interviews that he fully believes that Scott is only going to coach 5 to 7 more years.
Correct.
And then retire and enjoy what would at that point be his 60s or there or close to it. If it's 5, it'll be just before. If it's 7, it will be when he turns 60 years old.
Right.
And he wants to enjoy that time in his life. So like Jay Wright is right now, and do those things. And Scott will probably do a little bit of TV.
Oh yeah.
He'll be great. He's done that before. He's been great at it. He's so enthusiastic. So he chose to stay at Baylor because this is his programs. This is his program. He built it.
Right.
There's going to be a statue of him out there. They're going to name the court after him. That's going to happen one day.
Go ahead.
And was not going to happen at Kentucky unless he won in those 5 to 7 years.
Probably like 2 or 3
national titles, which it's hard to do. Look, Danny Hurley made it look as easy as it's been, like from the NCAA tournament last year to now. And I promise you, not one single day of his life has been easy.
No way.
I mean,
No.
So to win 2 in a row, they made it look as easy as you can make it look.
Yeah.
But I promise you that was not easy for anyone. Like the games, they all won by 15 and 20 points.
They were sweating.
There were points, but they were like, we haven't made a shot in 5 minutes. So, and Alan, I'm not talking about you. By the way, you're very loyal.
Alan is loyal. He's definitely loyal.
Alan, I love you. I love you conditionally. But this was about keeping and finishing with what you built. And look, there were a lot of pressures to take the Kentucky job from a lot of people close to him because it's the Kentucky job.
Exactly.
It's a Kentucky job. You can't not listen to it. There are 5 jobs right now that if they came open, because I'm adding UConn to that list.
That they have to be.
Because if Danny Hurley did go to Kentucky like Kentucky wanted him to, then UConn you got to listen because they've shown the ability. 3 different coaches have won titles.
Yes.
2 of them multiple titles. The guy who won what would have been the 4th one out of 6 was initially their interim coach.
Yeah, he was.
Kevin Ollie.
Yeah, Kevin, yeah.
He was an interim coach and then took over. So, you get 3 under Jim Calhoun, you get 1 for Kevin Ollie, and now you have 2 from Danny Hurley. Well, all right, great. That one's going to be there. Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, and Kansas when they're open.
Right.
And, I think on that, if there's one that could, get an honorable mention, it would be UCLA. Because that's
they have the track
that's
record,
John
the
Wooden's
history,
school.
yeah.
Just now look, you can compare to UCLA to Alabama in football with Bear Bryant and John Wooden. Now that comparison is over. That's over. But because it's John Wooden's school, and it's in LA, which is a great, they love basketball there. That would be one I would listen to, obviously. But maybe not as much as I would. Even John Calipari turned down UCLA in 2019 to stay at Kentucky.
Which now he's saying he regretted. How convenient was that?
Yeah. Well, look, and so here we are. Scott decides to stay here in Waco. And, it was mildly surprising given what was going on last night where you see a plane landing with his family getting off. But, they've got they're entrenched here. Mm-hmm. And if he was 5 to 8 years younger than he is right now, I would have said look, that's it.
Yeah.
But then you throw in all the factors and it was just too much to turn away from here. This is everything he's built here is now starting to really pay off. And I do believe this. I've talked to several sources off the record about this today, earlier after we found out. I do not think. Now, look, there might be a player that throws out a number that he's like, that's stupid. I'm not doing that.
Right. Yeah.
Best of luck. I'm not going to do that. But I think now when it comes to NIL,
they're good.
they're solid, and I don't think there's going to be see if you can get them for how about we ask him for a 25% off coupon? That's not going to have to happen anymore. I think he has solidified NIL for the basketball team that will be where if both sides are in the same vicinity, it's going to get done.
Yeah.
That's not to say he's just going to go and use daddy's credit card like a sorority girl on spring break. That's not that's going to happen. Just when they have the opportunities to make those things, they're not going to have to go back and forth.
Right.
The guys are going to be taken care of in all those regards. So I think it's great news for the Big 12 too.
Yes.
It's really great news for the Big 12 because, and here's the other reason it's great news for the Big 12. There are two very real scenarios that would have caused Big 12 dominoes to keep falling. And especially if you start going and poaching your own. So if it was Grant McCaslin, then Tech's got to go get somebody. We'll say Tech then goes to say, well, you know what? We want Jerome Tang now. Well, Jerome Tang is still mad at the, president, which I don't know how much that still exists whatever that is. Okay. Then Kansas State has to go get somebody. Well, what if Kansas State goes and hires an assistant off of the, TCU staff. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying,
or Alvin Brooks,
or Alvin Brooks. Yes. You get to go this round and round and round you go when it comes to all that. So, maybe Baylor wants to hire John Jacobs and then FAU. So now look, does it keep it out of the Big 12? No, because I think TJ Otzelberger is probably at least on the list to
he should definitely be
to
a
call.
Yeah.
I don't think they're too TJ Otzelberger yet. But his style would seem to fit Kentucky. But also, Scott Drew is a very deeply religious person who every step of the way is moved by his faith.
Which, look, the statement says it.
Yeah, there you go. Jesus, others, then ourselves, or yourselves. So that's the culture of joy. And so when he prayed on it and feels that he's got clarity, believe me, that clarity, he believes in his heart is coming from above. This is not, this is nobody else telling him this. Well, two people, God and Mrs. Drew.
Yeah, exactly.
Because again, happy wife, happy life. And if she and your family are going to be happier here, you have to consider that. And one of the things that he has been able to do, which is something a lot of coaches don't get to do, is really put down roots in a place and stay. Mm-hmm. Coaching is an itinerant profession. It is very, very difficult to even successful coaches. So sometimes you're so successful, you keep, Kalen DeBoer, is really hoping Alabama works out well.
Yeah.
Because then he won't ever have to move again.
Exactly.
Like
the Dan Lanning situation.
Yes.
He said, I found my home. I'm here in Oregon to stay.
And I do think that there's a benefit to that.
I know yesterday.
Tom Osborne probably moved twice in his life once he got the Nebraska job, and is only to get a newer house.
Yeah.
And even then, it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't.
No, that's a good point.
This is the house we bought. This is where our kids were raised. This is where we're going to stay.
Where we're staying.
Yeah,
So, I felt really confident yesterday. I think we had all talked about this when the picture came out of Drew at Mikasita. I was like, okay, this feels like one where he's saying, this is my underlying message that I'm staying put. And then when everything started circulating, and I believe it was last night when Darby over at KWTX put the poster of the tweet out of his family landing back at Temple, I was like, okay, maybe this is a situation where I started thinking, well, he deflected the family and the flight tracker and everything. Mm-hmm. But the more I started thinking about it, I started to get – go ahead.
He's honestly not that sad.
No, he's probably not, but it just felt like one of those things where you try to put the attention over here, get away from your family. It is what it is. But I started to get a little nervous at that point because – I started thinking about the staff, right? You just lost Bill Peterson and Jacobs is gone. And I started thinking, well, it's nothing new to him. He's had to reconstruct his staff over the past few years. But is that another element of this where you're looking at it like I could go to Kentucky and put the staff together? But then the more I started thinking about it, because I try to put myself in people's places and in different scenarios and situations. And like you mentioned with the family, I have a daughter who's in high school. There's no way in hell she would want to move. We've had these conversations with the past. It's not going to happen. But then like for me and my family, like it's peace and tranquility. And yesterday was the prime example of if you take that job, all of that is gone. Like I've been here pretty much my entire life. I've never seen Scott Drew outside of Baylor. Like I've never seen him in the public here. Like they seem to live a life that's pretty off the radar. And that is completely gone if you take that job.
Yeah. There are coaches wise that have been here, assistant coaches that I've met or all that, through in passing or at games or that know us or whatever. Right. But the longest tenured coach, Scott Drew, like I've met Kelly Drew like in 19 years of being here, like 3 to 5 times.
Yeah,
and the longest I ever talked to her was one time I was walking into a restaurant and they were walking out of a restaurant, and it was like it was like a coaching event. Like they were there and my mom was with me, and so I wanted to introduce my mom to Coach Drew, and then she was right there, so we talked for a second, and that was it. Like, it's not like – and there's – how many times – I'll tell you this. How many times have you seen Kelly Drew on the broadcast, like, nervously watching the game?
Never.
Never. I mean, because, again –
They might have gotten, like, one shot over the years, but it's not a consistent thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's not, like – that's not, and sometimes you do. You see the doting wife that's there, and like, oh my gosh, like watching the game, getting fired up, and that's just not their personality. You go to Kentucky, and already they had stuff on the message boards, like from the people who did. Like it's a lot. It's a different animal.
See, and
this fits him really well, and I fits them really well as a family, and. I'm sure, look, he had people in his ear telling him, like, dude, you got to take it. It's Kentucky. It's Kentucky. Kentucky. But sometimes, it's just not the right time. And there was a time, I do believe, that Kentucky would have gotten this done in about 40 minutes.
Dude, I really think if this came out, it's weird to say like 2 years ago. Maybe 2 years ago. You won a natty. You didn't have the Foster built yet. I think even then he probably would have gone. I really do firmly believe Baylor's ability to step up in NIL for basketball. To me, they're starting to shift more. I've always felt like this, and I know people like Baylor fans and stuff have pushed back on me. I view Baylor as a basketball school. I view Baylor like a Michigan State or North Carolina where you're good at football on a regular basis, but basketball is your bread and butter. A lot of people will disagree with that, but that's how I view it. And like, why would you want to – I don't know. You have everything set in place. There's no need to go to Kentucky when all you're going to get is a little more exposure and more of a headache. Like, why would you even bother with that?
Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot. Like, and again, it used to be, look, and every fan base has their
crazies.
Yeah, they're crazies. But, I mean, Kentucky just has them in droves. And, one of the things that, like, you always have to, in every situation in life, you have to take the good with the bad, right? Mm-hmm. So the good is you take a job like Kentucky, and when you go on the road,
oh, yeah.
I mean, the SEC tournament was mostly Kentucky fans.
Yep.
If you watch the final between Auburn and A&M, that was dead in Nashville. It's because Kentucky lost, and they just left, and nobody was there to buy their tickets because, Auburn's, I guess reasonably close enough to Nashville where you could decide to run up there and go. College Station is not. Like
but Auburn's different. But if it was football, they would travel. But, yeah.
But Kentucky fans were there. I remember when Baylor played Kentucky in Atlanta. In the Georgia Dome. Oh, yes, it is. In the Georgia Dome in 2013. 13?
Would have been 13 or 14.
Yeah, when they won the national title, Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
When the brow.
The brow.
So Baylor played Xavier in the Sweet 16. Mm. And that game was very well attended by Kentucky fans. Baylor, Xavier, and whoever Kentucky was playing before, I now forget.
Right.
Were not as well represented. And then when the other two teams were out, when you get there like on Saturday or Sunday, whatever that day was, and forgive me, again, I don't remember the exact days because that was the most hectic month of my life of traveling. I wish I would do it. If I was still single, I would try to do it every year, but it was
stressful.
Crazy. Yeah. It was awesome. It was great, but it was awesome. It was great. It was awesome, but it was like mind numbing. when you have to fly from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Bowling Green, Ohio, and you have to find a way to get that done in about 18 hours. Like that
don't sound fun.
No.
That sounds tedious.
Also, Bowling Green, Ohio. It's there. Bowling Green, Ohio, an incorporated city. That's what I'll say about it. Bowling Green, Ohio, mostly paved roads. But the amount of fans, like it was 95-5.
Yeah.
And all the Kentucky fans, save for I'm sure there were like a few speckled in there, were sitting here. And then like Mamadou and like a group of Baylor fans were sitting behind me. And that's all I knew.
That's it, yeah.
Honestly, like, you ever see that movie, The 300?
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what it felt like. That's what it felt like. Was like, okay, if there's a brawl here, it better be miraculous like that. But we're taking some casualties no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, it would be one of those things, you know, that's what it felt like. And the Baylor team was already going to have a hard time with that great Kentucky team. It's the last time they won the title.
Loaded.
Anthony Davis is going to maybe
John
be a Hall
Wall,
of Fame. Yeah.
who was going to come to Baylor.
Yeah. Remind me to tell you a story in the break about that, by the way.
I'm interested.
It's one I can't tell on the air, but it's a good one. Anyhow, it was you said have that. But the problem with it is that because there's so many more people who are nuts.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of keep the Baylor crazies in like one little jar.
Yeah, there's a little group of, you know,
there's
who
a
they
little
are.
group. Like there's a little group of the Baylor crazies, right? You cannot like the Kentucky ones. It's like you don't even know, like they're coming from everywhere. They're hiding amongst the normals.
Yeah.
Like you can't discern it. And so it's a different thing altogether. We have lots of people lined up today to talk about this. We've got Kevin Flaherty. We've got Jason King. We've got Kendall Cout. We also have Mickey Spagnola to just give me a break on this. And we're going to talk Cowboys in that segment and maybe some others if they pop up along the way. Mm-hmm. Craig and Smokey are doing wedding duties. And the advice I gave them was just say yes, ask for details, give her a smile, and get it done.
Yes. Take deep breaths.
As stupid or ridiculous or repetitive as it may be. Yes, absolutely. I'm here to help. Is there anything I can do to make sure this is done correctly? All right, thank you. I'm on my way. I'll see you when I'm done.
Exactly.
Feel free to call me if anything else comes up.
But please don't.
I'm happy to hear it. I'm happy to help. I'm here to help in any way that you see fit, because this is the most important day of Daniel and Jennifer's life, but mostly Jennifer's.
Mostly Jennifer's, yes.
Yes. We as grooms are along for the ride.
Yep.
If you ever see a groom who's planning the wedding, I don't think that's going to work out. It's going to be bad. It's going to be a thing like, oh, what's the meal? Oh, Jersey Mike's had 2-for-1 6-foot subs. So I got 4 of those for the price of 2.
Over here.
Well, there's 200 people at this wedding. Well, how much, you know?
Just divvy it up. You'll be
is
fine.
one of those just tuna? You know, that's how it would be. When we come back, Kevin Flaherty joins us. He'll break this all down from a national perspective, what this means, where Kentucky goes from here, and so on and so on. I'll tell you this, both Kentucky writers we had on thought it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's weird how you have that. Both Kentucky writers think Scott Drew's going to take it. All the Baylor people think he's going to stay.
Yep.
And, you know, only one of us can be right. And I'll just tell you, for the prognosticator in us and the people who know him, it's good that it worked out that our predictions were correct.
Yes.
And that we do actually know him as well as we think we do.
Otherwise,
I told Ashley this morning. We were talking about it. I'm like, I'm glad I really do. Like, I've gotten the correct read on him all these years. Otherwise, I'd be like, I guess you don't know him as well as you think you do.
Oh, man.
All right. When we come back, Kevin Flaherty. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Have Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Have Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul Catalina flying solo today. And that's why I need to get experts like Kevin Flaherty, college basketball insider for a very long time, with us here on 365 Sports. And Kevin, Scott Drew decides to stay at Baylor in Spurn, Kentucky. What is your level of surprise or confirmation with this decision?
Yeah, I think there was definitely some surprise. You know, you heard kind of through the years that, you know, Scott Drew was pretty attached to Baylor for a lot of different reasons. And yet at the same time, you know, people kind of talked about, well, if the Kentucky job came open because John Calipari went to the NBA or if he retired or whatever else, that he would be a prime candidate and that he would be interested in what Kentucky had to say. And I think that process played out in terms of him listening and him being interested. At the same time, the pull of Baylor, of Waco, of the Baylor fans, all of those things wound up being too much. And you have to, it's something to get excited about, right? And I'd say that as a general college basketball fan, because he has Baylor in a spot where he can get that deep into, you know, Kentucky job negotiations, whether you want to say he was offered the job, he wasn't, you know, you see conflicting reports out of Lexington, and look at Baylor and say, you know what, I've got it better at Baylor. I'm going to go ahead and stick there.
So, Kevin, what does I mean, first of all, for recruiting for Baylor, this has to be huge that he can say, look, I turned down Louisville and Kentucky in the span of 10 days. I want to be here. I feel this is better here. Come look at this new Foster Pavilion. Look at this. Look at this. And I know that he has used these couple of passes at him to solidify his NIL even stronger than it was before.
Sure. And, I don't know how far back your coverage of Baylor goes. I covered Gene Iba when he was at Pittsburgh State, and he used to talk about how hard it was to win at Baylor, when he was there. And I remember very specifically in the early 2000s when Kansas lost a game in the Big 12, and one of the players said in the postgame press conference, you guys need to calm down. It's not like we lost to Baylor or something. And that's before you add in all the circumstances behind the exit and creation of that opening that Scott Drew wound up taking. And so when you look at where the program was and the lack of TV games and all of the different things that they had to go through, the NCAA sanctions, for them to come out on the other side and be a good college basketball program would be one of the best coaching jobs in college basketball history. To take it further than that and win a national championship at Baylor, again, even if you didn't look at all the NCAA stuff and you just looked at, hey, this is how much Baylor has struggled up to this point, I think that would be a miracle in itself. And then having where you can say, hey, Kentucky is, in my mind, Paul, is the best job in college basketball. At least it's sort of that number one job where you say you have everything there to win at Kentucky. It's the best of the blue bloods, I think. You've got all the history. They've got facilities. You have access to NIL, all of those different things. And Scott Drew said no. And so for him to be able to walk into the house of the next VJ Edgecombe who's coming in and be able to say to him, like, hey, I could have had everything over there at Kentucky. I'm at Baylor. Let me tell you why. And to point out, Foster Pavilion, to point out all the different things that go with it. I think that's one heck of a recruiting pitch, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. Baylor recruits pretty well already. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see this add a little extra gas in that tank.
So where does Kentucky go from here? He's the only one who's got an offer to this point. So it's not like
Sure.
They've been turned down by 3 or 4 people, but I do see parallels to this in the Texas coaching search when they replaced Mac Brown. Because it's such a huge brand and you want to try to rope in the biggest fish possible, but the minute you go for one big fish, the other ones kind of swim away.
Well, and it's so funny you say that because I had that exact same thought because I covered Texas when that whole thing went down. And I remember very specifically Texas had a candidate that they got turned down by some guys, but they had a candidate they really liked who wasn't able to come in initially. And Texas A&M fans may cringe when I say the name. It was Jimbo Fisher. Mm-hmm. And Jimbo Fisher was getting ready. Florida State was going to play in the national title game. And it was one of those things where you ask Texas, hey, are you going to sit pat and wait for Jimbo to come out of this and go after that guy if that's really your candidate? Or are you going to kind of hurry up and get this done with somebody maybe you're not quite as excited about? And Kentucky is in a very similar situation, I think, with Billy Donovan, right? Billy Donovan hasn't said yes, he hasn't said no, which is different than, Dan Hurley saying no, different than Scott Drew saying no. But if that's your guy, you have a choice now because you aren't going to really be able to get this thing off the ground, I don't think, until that season ends. Do you wait on Billy Donovan and risk missing on him saying no and going through kind of the whole thing again? Or do you kind of start pushing forward with somebody else that maybe you aren't super excited about? If it were me, I'll be honest with you, I know that Xavier didn't have the best season this year. I think Sean Miller would be a candidate for me just because of the success he had at Arizona. He was really close to going to a Final Four. You know he can recruit. And quite frankly, the reasons he lost his job at Arizona aren't applicable anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like you can pay guys now with NIL and things like that. And so, you know, that would be a choice for me. I think Mick Cronin is an unbelievable coach. And I think, you know, there would maybe be some question of personality fit. You know, Mick can be, I think, a little bit grating when people question what he's doing, and Kentucky fans love questioning what their coach is doing. But I also think that he's the type of guy that when you play UCLA, you play UCLA basketball. He forces you to play the way that they want to play, and there's something to be said for that. And so I'm not sure exactly where they go at this point, but they do face a similar choice to what Texas had after Mac Brown, where do you sit and wait on your candidate and say, this is our guy? You know, yes, this may give them some leverage if we're waiting a little bit longer, whatever else, but we're going to go get this guy and risk it. Or do you just go ahead and say, you know what, we need to move on. We're going to go get somebody else.
Yeah, nothing that Billy Donovan said when he was asked about it makes you think that he would never do it either. I lean towards he'd stay in the NBA, but it's not like he's exactly ripping it up there. And it's not like the Bulls have, you know, a short-term future that involves multiple national titles either, you know, or NBA titles. So, I mean, I think he's gettable for them, and I think he didn't say anything that he wouldn't be interested. He just said he's with the Bulls right now. And again, the timing of this is, like you said, awful. But you know, that one would. I mean, if it works out, it would seem to be, you know, a way bigger home run than Scott Drew would be. And that's no offense to Scott, but you know, look, they can't have the guy who just won back-to-back national titles, but they could maybe get the last guy who did it.
Sure. And it's interesting, too, because a big part of the reason you heard that Billy Donovan left was he was tired of all the recruiting stuff. And you look at all of sort of the classic coaches, if you will, the Roy Williamses, the Coach K's and guys like that who got out, you know, sort of at the explosion of this NIL deal and everything. Is Billy Donovan really going to want to leave an NBA job where his job is to coach guys? He doesn't have to scout, you know, in terms of scouting, you know, college guys for the NBA. His GM takes care of that. He doesn't have to do a lot of those things. He can just coach basketball and get paid a lot of money to do it. Is he going to want to leave that sort of situation to go to Kentucky, which has a lot of bells and whistles, but also has some trappings? And all of a sudden, not only is he dealing with recruiting, which he didn't like before, but he's dealing with NIL and all of the different things that go along with that too. And so there is some risk to waiting for Billy Donovan. And like you said, you know, if you get Billy Donovan, that's a home run. You know, your alums are all applauding at the press conference. Everybody's talking about how you won the offseason. But what happens if you wait for Billy Donovan and you don't get him? That's another question.
Yeah, absolutely. Why would they not consider Will Wade, or should the school that Kentucky poaches from, provided it's probably not UCLA, why would they not consider Will Wade?
No, I think Will Wade is somebody that makes a lot of sense for a lot of the same reasons that I think Sean Miller makes a lot of sense, in that the reasons that those guys are at the coaching level that they're at, it's not that they were bad coaches. They didn't get fired for being ineffective. What happened was they wound up getting caught in, if you want to call them antiquated NCAA rules and the different things like that. That's the reason that he's down at McNeese. That's the reason that Sean Miller is over Xavier. And so when you look at all that, it makes sense. It does kind of crack me up. You're seeing the odd Kentucky fan saying, hey, you know, Rick Pitino, come home type of stuff. But no, I mean, it does make sense to look at somebody like that. And I think that would be, you know, maybe a more inspired choice than, you know, just looking at, hey, who's a major conference coach that has a good record? Let's go get this guy.
Do you think it's a flaw to want a coach that has a national championship as one of your, must-have criteria?
I think so, because I think if you're Kentucky specifically, you should feel like if a guy has had success, you can get him over that hump, right? A Nate Oates or somebody like that who has not won a national title but just reached a Final Four, you should be able to look at Nate Oates and say, well, okay, but he probably wins a national title at Kentucky. You know, you have the things to get them those last few steps that maybe they didn't have it at their previous stop. And the other thing is, it's really hard to win a national title. And not only is it hard to win a national title in terms of you need to be really, really good and you need to be great as a coach, but you also need luck to do it. And so I think that's the other thing too, is there have been some really good coaches that have had bad luck. And so when you look at that too, I think, you know, one of the arguments against Miller, and I realize I keep bringing up Sean Miller, but one of the arguments against him is that he doesn't have any Final Fours. Well, they went into overtime one of those years. I mean, you're a bucket away from a Final Four. So, you know, is it really that, you know, you weren't a good enough coach to go to the Final Four? And so I really think that there is a flaw in looking at it like that. And I also think, too, you know, a lot of coaches, when you go to Kentucky, you don't just go to win a national title. You know, Calipari won a national title. What they want you to do is be consistently great and be a national title type team, a contender year in and year out. And so you look at, you know, Kevin Ollie took over for Calhoun and wound up winning a national title. He's not who you want running Kentucky in terms of, hey, you're going to spend the next 10 years dominating college basketball.
Mitch Barnhart is 65.
Sure.
This is more than likely his last big basketball hire. If he does not get this one right, does this mean that he probably, even if he wanted to, won't get to make the next one?
Yeah, I think so. And I think even beyond that, I think there are going to be a lot of people watching what John Calipari does at Arkansas, given that it was no secret that the two kind of had a frayed relationship or frayed deal because Calipari was asking for certain things within that program and Barnhart wasn't granting them. And whether you come down on Barnhart's side of that or you come down on Calipari's side of that, it's only going to be natural for people to look at, hey, if the next hire doesn't work out and Calipari is over at Arkansas winning games, you know, that's when you start to look at it and say, well, okay, you know, who is the real winner here? You know, should he get to make that next hire? Typically, athletic directors at most places, the football hire is the most important one. And if you mess that up, a lot of times you don't get to make another football hire. But at Kentucky, with the way that fan base is and everything else, you know, you better get that basketball hire right. And if you don't, and if Calipari finds success at Arkansas, which I think he will be pretty successful there, you know, I think that those two things are going to combine and make it really, really tough for him to continue to have his job and make that next basketball hire.
For Arkansas, have they made a hire that gets them back into the upper echelon, the Nolan Richardson 40 minutes of hell days, or did they make their Jimbo Fisher hire?
I think, you know, it's really funny. I think it could be both. And the reason I say that is I think it's really important who he brings on as assistants, because I think as good as Calipari is at so many different things, and I actually think he's an underrated coach. And I wrote an article to that extent, you know, a few years ago, you know, just talking to different people. I even talked to Bill Self about it since he knows Calipari so well. And one of the things that he said was there are a lot of coaches who can take, you know, a good player and make him a little bit better, or take an average player and make him good. It's very rare to get somebody who can take a guy who's already great and a great talent and really elevate what they have. And he mentioned the fact that they were able to get so many one and done guys to buy in defensively and to playing unselfishly. And a lot of the things that Kentucky has kind of been known for throughout the years, although this year's team was totally different and scored like crazy and couldn't defend anybody. But I do think that it's going to really depend on who he surrounds himself with. He needs, for one thing, I think they took a hit when Kenny Payne left. I think that Payne was a guy that related with a lot of players and also was a guy that was pretty good come practice time in terms of helping them out. I think you look at Texas Tech this year and how effective they were because of their assistant coach hires along with everything else. And I think that's where I sit with Calipari. I think Calipari is going to get talent because he's John Calipari and he dominates the living room. But whether or not Arkansas is going to be merely a really good team or they're going to be a team that's reaching Final Fours, has a chance to win national titles like the Nolan Richardson era, I think it's going to depend a lot on who he surrounds himself with and whether those voices are heard, whether he's listening to those guys. I think that's going to be a big part of it.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, thanks you so much. We've got to do more with you, Kevin. Every time you come on, it's magical. I'm not a writer. You're the writer. But great stuff. Really appreciate it. Kevin Flaherty, college basketball insider. And it was great that he was covering Texas when the Mac Brown thing. That was a great
Yep.
I'm glad that comparison worked out. And yeah, that, like, can you imagine had they actually gotten Jimbo Fisher?
Oh,
because look, right then FSU was, they won the national title that year. I remember because I walked outside with Woodrow, and as we took our walk post game, I was like skipping down the road. He was looking at me like, "Bro, look, I'm just trying to go to the bathroom."
With that, man, I think Jimbo could have done it could have been good for about 2 years, and then his cantankerous attitude and those boosters, I think, would have gotten to a friction on the similar par as Tom Herman. I think it kind of would have took that route personally.
Yeah, maybe so. But again, what can A&M be right now?
A&M is always going to be A&M
until they find the guy who can quiet the noise.
Yeah.
And just be realistic about things.
Elko might actually be that guy. He seems like he might be.
He seems the most similar to R.C. Slocum of any coach that they've had.
Good point.
As far as the way he coaches, the way he hires assistants, no coach that they've had. Now, look, Cliff Kingsbury was a great hire for Kevin Sumlin. Mike Sherman had some really good assistants.
Yeah.
But also Mike Sherman was one of those R.C. Slocum assistants.
Yeah.
Nobody hired assistants like R.C. Slocum. A&M, part of the reason they were so good and kind of came out of nowhere was that he had, head coaches all over his staff. Bob Toledo wound up being the head coach at UCLA. Bob Davie was at Notre Dame, among other places. Tommy Tuberville. I apologize that I said his name out loud. Yeah. Now he's going to appear, but he was a great defensive coordinator for the Aggies for a little while before he got into head coaching, and he just had look. I'm leaving one out. Phil freaking Bennett.
Yeah, there's another one.
So he had those dudes. He just had guys and guys, and. That's Scott Drew's strength here, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is.
You look around, again, his coaching tree is unbelievable. And I'll tell you, if you are Bracket Cat said that's Senator Tommy Tuberville to you, Paul.
No.
Yeah, sure, that is. I don't know if that's as honorable a title as it used to be. FAU fans, I'm telling you right now, if you're an FAU fan, you happen to be watching today. You hired a really, really brilliant dude.
Yes.
Who has untapped potential. And that loss will sting Baylor a little bit like the Jerome Tang loss did. Because he is, every coach on the staff will tell you this. They beat Gonzaga. Now, listen, they had some insider knowledge because Jacobs was at Gonzaga. But they beat Gonzaga because Jacobs he knew all the stuff before he got there, and then he knew everything after. He was so intimately familiar with it. he had the best scout of a program that maybe anybody's ever had. And that's how his brain operates. They're going to be great. So there are all those there. So I'm wondering. I love that there's like Texas Tech fans on our message board that I said Tommy Tuberville, and they're like, you know what? F that guy.
Dude, thank you, Texas Tech fans. Thank you.
I mean,
God,
he would
I'm gonna
not.
leave a recruit
I can tell you
at
this:
a table.
he would not have been able, like, if he was a Texan and ran for Senate here, he would not like.
Oh, hell
he
no.
would not have been able to go campaign in West Texas.
Nope.
He would not have been able. Like, guess who else found that out? Craig James. Like, you can't.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, I'm a big time football guy. They'll love me in Texas. They're like, oh, parts of it.
Parts of it, exactly.
It's a big state, man.
It's a lot different out there.
Yeah. Hi, Texas Tech fans. You remember me? I'm Tommy Tuberville. I'm running for Senate. The F you are.
Smack tortilla to the face.
Yeah. Nope. Hey, Tommy, we're going to leave this rally, but we're going to do you the decency of telling you we're doing it.
Yeah, we're not just going to go to the bathroom and never come back.
Yeah. So, anyway, when we come back, we got some time. We're going to have Jason King at 4:30. So let's go through some of the other sports stories of the day. We're gonna shift down on what Kentucky's going to do and what Scott Drew's going to do in the future here at Baylor. We'll get through some of the other stuff, including a look at the Masters leaderboard, which right now has the sunshiny and bubbly Bryson DeChambeau leading as he's in the clubhouse at a 7 under 65. So none of us drafted Bryson DeChambeau. Yesterday,
he took that personally.
I guess he did.
He took that personally.
I guess he did. We'll talk about that. We'll kind of do a rundown next. This is 365 Sports.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com. I know business is rolling along, and you've got a special right now that involves Wagyu hamburger patties, but something extra special with that.
So we've got a deal going on right now that if you buy our family bundle, the 28-pound Wagyu hamburger patty bundle, we're going to throw in some of our beef bacon and our flat iron steak for free. And flat iron steak, as our family, our whole Duvall family, that is one of our favorite steak, and it's not a well-known steak. This is something that's in our auction. So we want people to try this flat iron prior to, and that way, whenever it comes time for our auction on April 25th, you have your chance to bid on the beef, the entire case of flat iron.
I've used flat iron steak as well. It's a unique piece of beef. Obviously, everything Wagyu, farm-raised Wagyu beef, TexasBeefHouse.com.
There's two different ways that we eat it. You can either grill it like you grill a normal steak and eat it like that, or another thing that I like to do in our family is we make it in a stir fry. So we slice it up in little thin pieces, put it on the stove with some coconut oil, blanch some broccoli, and we eat it as a little stir fry with steak and broccoli.
My mom did that too with flat iron steak. TexasBeefHouse.com, just outside of Tyler and White House, the Duvall family and the ranch. Farm-raised Wagyu beef at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33. Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Yeah. Well, I said we were going to downshift. But according to John Rothstein, BYU coach Mark Pope has emerged as a candidate for the Kentucky head coaching job.
Call one of their own.
Yes. Actually, I did a top 5 today that is based on this, and he's not on it just because I thought he hadn't done enough yet, right? But he was there, and look, they've got to get to a point where they can find people who aren't going to say no.
You got to humble yourself at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me for that burp. That was disgusting. But you know, it's not about humbling. Like, yeah, a little humble yourself, but like, again, Mark Pope is probably going to say yes.
He should say yes.
If he might be a candidate, he might not be the candidate, and I think he should be a candidate for the job. I think they'll love his style there for sure.
Oh, BYU was so fun this year, and if you get the everything that goes into that, yeah, I mean they shot the lights out. The only problem with them was their style kind of bit them when they went dry from shooting threes.
Live by it, die by it.
Yeah, I mean that's going to happen.
But it was also early on in his career at BYU. You don't have to keep that style forever. You just have to match a style to what works for you. And when you are playing in the Big 12, you need to play a style that can help you win most games. And if it's bombing threes all the time, then that's what you're going to have to do because you don't get nights off.
No.
You don't get nights off. So some nights you've got to be like, all right, look, and that's what was Baylor's kind of thing where they were never out of any game because they were always, a 12-0 run of 4 threes in a row from Jacoby Walter from getting back in a game. They just needed to be more complete as a team. They were
and better defensively, really.
Yeah, and not even that much better. Just like a little better, just a little more attitude, which look, I think Yves Missi will have in his NBA career. He'll get there.
Yeah, he will.
Because I think he's got it, but you don't have it until you kind of get to that point.
Like, I really think they could have, I'm watching the tournament, and as the tournament went on and watching different players and schemes, I really felt like if Baylor had a player like Middlebrooks from North Carolina State, because he did for the Wolfpack a lot of the things that Mark Vidal did here for Baylor. Like, that's what you need. You need somebody like that can flip the switch. And Yves Missi, I was hoping that he would stick around here and develop, but I mean, he's going to be a lot. He's going to exactly.
What are you going to do?
Best of luck to him, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, and that's the thing. Had Scott taken that job, I'd have been like, "What are you going to do?"
Yeah,
he's in the lottery.
Exactly.
Like it's just like what coaches are. I remember, Quincy Miller when he initially said he was going to stay at Baylor, and then like a week later changed his mind. I was doing the PA for Baylor baseball at the time.
Right.
And then they made the announcement, and I rode up on the elevator with the two of them. And he came in and made the announcement, but I remember like looking over at Quincy Miller, and he was like, oh, man. Oh, gosh. Oh, he was nervous.
Just going through it, yeah.
Yeah. And then from then on, I thought, like, listen, if they're going to go, you just got to, you can't.
Yeah.
The rules have changed now where it makes it better where you can go and find out because, again, there's only 2 rounds. In the NFL, there's 7 rounds.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
There's a good shot if they think you're an NFL player, they're going to take you. You just may not make as much money right off the bat. But if you're good enough, you're gonna make it. In the NBA, there's only 2 rounds. So you can declare and go early and had to make that decision, and then you don't get drafted. You're like, well, maybe I should have gone back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you got to go. You got to go. So Mark Pope, that'll be an interesting one. We'll see how that is. So, all right, let's go to the Masters, Garrett.
Okay.
And this segment brought to you by golfpartnerusa.com. This little golf snippet, an update. Leading the Masters right now, Bryson DeChambeau, a 7 under 65 in the clubhouse. Danny Willett is in second in the clubhouse. He is at 4 under. And then there are 2 other players at 4 under, but they're both on the course in Matt Fitzpatrick and Scotty Scheffler, who is the defending champion. Ryan Fox, Byung-Hyun An, Will Zalatoris, all at 3 under par, and currently a notable name at 1 under par. He is through 3 holes at this point, but his one Eldrick Tiger Woods is at 1 under par early on in the tournament, and I could get into all. I'll have to set up a team with all of our, or a thing to follow all of our players.
Do you
which
have?
I can, but
do you? So I've only started watching the Masters like the past couple of years, really since COVID, since the COVID year when Matsuyama
played it in November.
Won. Yeah, when Matsuyama won it.
Yeah.
Like, so that's kind of when I started watching. Do you have a favorite Masters moment or like a go-to shot or something that you absolutely just when this time of year comes around, it comes to your head?
Everything Tiger's ever done at the
Everything
Masters.
Tiger's ever
I
done.
love Tiger at the Masters. I love it. They're all some of my favorite sports memories. This, following the thing into the hole, when he beat Chris DeMarco. And then look, one of my favorite things is when he won in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I was so happy. Look, Smokey and I are both huge Tiger Woods fans, as you know.
Oh yeah.
We were in a hotel in Atlanta when Baylor played Kentucky, watching Tiger come back and win a tournament that wasn't even a major. It was in March.
Right.
And we were like, he had come back from being away and won a tournament, and we were like jumping up and down, like, go get him, Tiger. Yeah, we were fired up. So, and I'll be really excited if Brooks Koepka wins. I think it'll be great. I like Brooks. I'm very upset about the live thing, but congratulations on all your money, I guess. But
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I like the other thing is, like, I was watching a lot of golf a couple years ago, and then when live happened, I kind of stopped because, I would watch. Right. I'm always going to watch the majors. I'm always going to follow the majors. I just like now that like a lot of the guys I like especially John Rahm, like. He's not playing in the John Deere Classic. He's not playing those things, so I'm not watching it. So it just kind of sucks. But wanted to give a quick update on the Masters. And let's see. Also, O.J. Simpson's dead. That's a thing that happened.
Yep.
He had cancer and he passed away. I talked about it earlier on Triple Option. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about O.J. Because mostly it's depressing, but. He changed the world in not a good way. And so that's that. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it.
I when it comes to OJ, I was too young, obviously, for any of the football stuff. I just remember watching the Bronco thing. Then you had that trial, and then everything that's kind of gone on after that, which is kind of turned into an awkward show with him. And then, like Simi was saying earlier, he had the little resurgence and got on social media and would say things like trying to act like a normal person. And it was just so awkward because I literally just watched the ESPN documentary and saw the horrific photos. And I can't get down with you acting like a normal person. But, hey, whatever, rest easy and whatnot.
Yeah, whatever. I'm sorry to his family. I mean, that had to be weird your whole lives.
Yeah.
But
poor damn kids.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I don't know how to put anything on this without being insensitively humorous.
I know that's where I am. That's why I get cautious with these things.
Yeah,
I have a very dark sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: SNL did a lot of really controversial OJ stuff. We got Norm Macdonald fired. Because Don Ohlmeyer, the president of NBC, was friends with OJ because of NBC Sports.
Mm-hmm.
So he fired Norm because of OJ. Then a couple of years ago, when he had initially got out of prison, they did a sketch that it was a one joke sketch, and it was so funny afterwards. I remember watching it. The whole thing was Kenan Thompson was playing OJ, but you didn't know he was OJ. It was just a guy at dinner on a date with a lady who was not American.
Okay.
And so all the people at the restaurant are being very rude to all the waiters, and people come by and and then eventually he's like, well, I'm OJ Simpson. And then, like, you're like, oh, I get it. Like, it was very funny. But they had to, like, the discipline it took to go through a sketch where they knew they weren't going to get that many laughs until the laugh was really amazing. But, yeah, it was, like, such a strange mark on things. And the stuff that came out of it, like, you know what, like, weird, I was talking about this earlier, the stuff that came out of it that was so strange about the OJ trial was that it let people who were, like, involved in scandals get somehow, like, into the entertainment world.
Oh, God. The Kardashians.
Yeah.
That's a prime example.
Yeah, we have the Kardashians in large part because of OJ. I mean, and that's not even the worst thing to me where – do you remember Rod Blagojevich? Do you know who he is?
I don't. I'm not even going to lie to you.
Rod Blagojevich was the governor of Illinois, and he was removed as governor of Illinois because he was extorting money from a children's hospital.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And as Chicago politicians go, that's even low for them because Chicago's famously not a very clean city politically for hundreds of years now. And Rod Blagojevich was then on, he was on The Celebrity Apprentice, which we'll leave that at that. But he was also on Dancing with the Stars. And I remember reading that when it happened. It's like, who in the world gives a crap whether this corrupt-ass politician can dance? Like, but that's the world we lived in post-OJ, where if you were somehow involved in a scandal, but you weren't in prison anymore, or you weren't, like, it was over, or you had enough personality, you could be like, remember when I stole money from kids that were dying? Oh, I'm going to go dance.
Let me go find Brett Favre.
I mean, yeah. Like, what, like, that was after that, there was just like, well, we can put anybody on television right now.
Yeah.
We can do anything, you know? I mean, maybe it happened a little before that. I always thought it was weird that G. Gordon Liddy had a radio show forever, but you know, and he was just even the Nixon people thought he was nuts,
right?
Like that, they were like, yeah, he's the guy that really got him caught because, well, but yeah, those kind of things like really amplified after OJ, and you know, it just we're never going back.
No,
and I lament those times. And I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but I did. All right, let's take a break right here. Tanya Harding, part of it too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, Tanya Harding.
That was just funny.
That was all around the same time, right? That was right before. Tanya Harding was right before OJ. But
I'm glad somebody said that because we were talking about that. What was the show that Tanya Harding, it was like Stallone's brother. That's the kind of thing that spun off of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that's just, yeah. Mike Bean, I thought Blago was in trouble because he put Obama's Senate seat for sale. Yes, they did that too. He did that too. He did a lot of things.
Yes.
He did a lot of things. So a great many things. Those were the two big ones. So, yeah.
So I got one question for you. One Big 12 basketball note of interest here. So Jamal Shead. Houston pretty much has everybody coming back now, and Jamal Shead was the one that everybody was waiting on. He has declared for the NBA draft. I'm not surprised. Any thoughts on Jamal Shead and his future heading into the NBA draft?
I think he's got the potential to be a really good NBA player.
Yeah,
I do. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be like a superstar,
right?
But he plays defense. He's a good passer. He's a good shooter. I mean, what else do you? I mean, tell me what else a guard like him needs.
Nothing. I mean, I think what separates
other than height. I mean, he's not particularly a tall guy. But
no, but I also think what separates him is, and it's not on this level by any means. So don't get it. But like Davion Mitchell, you could play elite defense. I think Jamal Shead ability to play defense and kind of hone on that and build on that and develop that more so. Focus on his style of game heading into the NBA can make him have a sustained career in the league because he's going to get his scoring wise, But if he can elevate his defense, which is really good right now, to that next level, I think he could be a special player.
Useful player. I mean, like right now, he needs to be taller. That's the thing that's going to get him. And he's going to be a G League or 2E player. Yes, I agree, Mike Bean for a little while. But look, I can tell you, Adam Flagler just got called up to Oklahoma City
last night.
And he's kind of the same size, right, as Jamal Shead. Jared Butler's not a guy who's really, really tall. And so, G League 2A player, but that's why that exists.
Yep.
So you can get those guys to find effective parts of their game. Look, Pierre Jackson would have been a really good NBA player if he was 6 inches taller. But
Tweety Carter.
Yeah. But, that was not going to happen.
No.
They did everything you wanted them to do. So, trying to think. All right, do you have anything else for me, Garrett?
No, we had one that's kind of timed out from yesterday. I'm looking right now through Twitter of anything of note. There's nothing of note right now.
Okay. Yes. Look, we're basketball heavy today. Let's take a break right here. We still have a guest at 4:30, but this will allow us to catch up on our breaks. We'll do that. We'll take a break. We'll come back. This is 365 Sports.
It's Dodge Power Shot Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Experience the adrenaline-pumping performance and cutting-edge technology of Dodge. From the sleek and stylish 2023 Charger to the performance and muscle of a Challenger to the bold and rugged Durango. During Dodge Power Shot Days, we're offering amazing deals and special incentives that will make driving a new Dodge even more exhilarating. Don't miss out on these exclusive savings. Visit Allen Samuels in Waco today and unleash the power of Dodge.
Come by. Let's be friends.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Alongside Garrett Ross and no one else today. Jack's gone. We're unsupervised in the studio.
Jack just chunked the dudes. He disappears.
Yeah, I think there's practice he's got to go to, but
he's like Houdini.
Yeah, but he didn't say, like, he didn't wave, Now we're going to be waiting up all night until he comes back. Just nervous.
Oh my God, dude. I literally am going through that right now. 'Cause my daughter's got prom coming up in 2 weeks, and I'm like, got that whole yes.
Are you going to do does she have a boyfriend or is just like a friend that's a date?
So, no, they're just going like a group of friends, and they're going to go do their thing. It's going to be interesting.
But do you have to give her, and your daughter's very smart. And
she's cool, man.
She's not like a partier.
She's not like me. No, she's total opposite, man. Now she's got a good head on her shoulders. She's pretty smart, so I don't really have.
But you still
many
have to give her the speech, though, right?
Yeah, you got to be smart. You got to do your thing as a parent and make sure you try to send them out there. But nah, I don't really have
my
much.
dad used to do that was like on a level of cunning that it would bother me. And I was a good kid. Like I wasn't going out doing wild stuff. But he would say, "Make good decisions. I know you always do." And then
dude, just sit with you.
Here, I was like, well, and so your friends are like, "Let's do it." I'm like,
you just got that internalizing. Yeah.
You guys do it. Whatever. Like, I'm just gonna. I know. Like, you don't know what this is gonna.
Right.
I'm just torn up. I don't want him to.
I can't disappoint him.
I can't disappoint him. And he also he knew that there was gonna be times because he'd been through it. He was once exactly the same age as I was, doing the same things, and so he would say those things, and he knew, I'm sure he got a big laugh out of it. I got him. I definitely stopped something stupid from happening tonight.
Well played.
So, as smart as and the thing is my group of friends, all smart dudes, all guys, none of us were, but the thing is that it doesn't matter. You get 4 or 5 guys, no matter how smart they are, in a room or out doing stuff and just trying to figure out how to, have fun during the night. Some dumb things are going to happen.
It's inevitable.
Minor dumb things at least that can go to major dumb things.
Oh yeah.
That's how it works. That's how it works. Yeah. Michael Paul, you're starting to sound like a responsible parent telling us something. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. That's a bridge I'm not ready to cross just yet. So we'll see. Let's see. Yes, I do.
Bear Alexander?
Yeah. We might be getting John Fanta right now.
That would be dope.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've already clicked the button, so this tweet's going to pop up.
Let's go ahead. Bear Alexander is not in the portal. He doesn't know where anybody got that from.
I wonder why. I wonder where somebody might have got that, Bear. I wonder.
Maybe it's just one of those things that they just assumed because it's a yearly thing for him to change schools. So, all right. We're going to have to do this on the fly, Garrett.
All right.
So that
Let me get the graphics right.
Yeah, get the graphics. So I apologize for this. And Emery, thank you for editing this part out of the video when you do it later. So sometimes you have to do things on the fly in the air. Go ahead and pot them up.
Already. Let me get this in there.
Hello.
Hey, John. Paul Catalina. Thanks for hopping on.
Hey, Paul. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. All right, we're doing this
man.
We're doing this on the fly because Smokey just said, "Hey, call Fanta right now." I said, "All right, I'm doing it." So I love doing live shows. This is why. But John Calipari goes to Arkansas, and I wanted your opinion on that. Scott Drew stays here. Kentucky is in a spot where programs of their caliber aren't normally. Where do they go from here?
Well, that's the $1 million question. I think that they go to a path of other potential candidates. I don't think that Billy Donovan is a realistic option here. First and foremost, you're talking about a guy who hasn't been in the college game in close to a decade. And you're talking about a guy who currently he's wired one way, and that's to get the Chicago Bulls through the play-in tournament and into a first-round series, because that would be a step in the right direction for him and the Chicago Bulls if they're able to do that. That's going to take way too much time for Big Blue Nation to sit around and wait. And for Billy Donovan's not, if he hasn't given an answer yet, he's not going to give an answer early next week when they're getting ready for the play-in tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you turn? You turn to Bruce Pearl at Auburn. You ask him what it would take. At the end of the day, Bruce Pearl has spent well over a decade in the SEC. He knows the league. He spent time at 2 schools. He's passionate. He's a winner. You look at Sean Miller at Xavier. That would be my hire. I would hire Sean Miller. And I'm going to tell you why. He's won 72, 73% of the games he's coached in. In 19 years as a head coach, almost half of them he's made the Sweet 16. He is a winner. He is extremely passionate about college basketball. I could tell you, covering Sean closely the last 2 years at Xavier, I'll be honest with you. This is a guy who thought he might never get the big-time coaching opportunity again. He had everything taken from him with the wiretap situation and with the investigation that took place with him and Book Richardson and paying DeAndre Ayton. I think there was a time in Sean Miller's life where he thought, I might not be able to get back to the big time. Well, he got back, and not only did he get back, he won right away with Xavier. He took him to a Sweet 16. He is a winner. The guy is wired on the sport. He will text me sometimes randomly in the middle of a night something about a player or something about a team from a different part of the country that he's just watching and he's intrigued by. He would live for Big Blue Nation, would understand the passion, and would win with that passion. Mark Pope is the other name right now that seems to be trendy. Obviously, he's a guy who played for Rick Pitino in Lexington. He's the most successful of the alums who are now currently coaching. And Pope has done a nice job at BYU. Do I think it's a grand slam? No, because I think it would carry question marks. That's why I kind of go in between Pearl, who seems like it's to me, if you're hiring Bruce Pearl now, it seems like you would have already done it by now if you really thought it was real. Miller seems like it's halfway between Pope and Pearl, and that's why he would sort of be my leader in the clubhouse right now.
What were your thoughts on Scott Drew deciding to stay here in Waco?
Well, I think it's the biggest win and the biggest respect ever to Baylor. I think Baylor fans should be celebrating. Pull out a bottle of your best alcohol. You make your favorite meal tonight. Go to your favorite restaurant because your coach is staying. This is a massive victory for Baylor, for the university, for the whole community. You know what it says to me? That Scott Drew will never leave Baylor. If he's not leaving now, it's not ever going to happen. He will be a lifer in Waco. He will get to another Final Four, at least one at Baylor. It's not easy to get to a Final Four. So that's me paying the ultimate respect to a coach, if not 2 or 3. He has made Baylor a destination. He's done it with hard work. He's done it with his faith. You know, his faith matters in this. And I believe every word of what he said and about consulting with God and talking with God about this decision. This is a huge pressure. You know, if you're going to make the move, you are moving your family. And I just think in the middle of everything, whether a coach gets fired, hired, or moves on to a different job, you're talking about kids. You're talking about a wife. You're talking about, of course, it's a pay raise. But I got to tell you what the thing about that I've learned through this is Kentucky's not as good of a job as it once was. Do you know why? Everybody else has been able to find a way to pay their coaches more and more and more money. It's not just about the money anymore. It's about the fit. It's about feeling at home. Scott Drew's going to both get paid, and he's going to feel at home at Baylor, and he's not going to have to go somewhere where whoever takes this job at Kentucky, the Kentucky fan base does not care what you have done before you got there. They're going to care what you do there. And it would be a totally clean start for Drew, in which if he loses it all early on, that fan base is relentless. They'll be questioning. He'll be in the news every day. He's happy at Baylor. He's winning at Baylor. What it says to me is that between him and his administration, he's got to like the people he works with every single day. He's got to like what he's built, and he's going to stay because he's happy there. And in our climate of college sports, you can't mess with happy.
John, now that plus he's turned down Louisville and Kentucky in 10 days. Like I just can't. I mean,
he ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
He'll never leave Baylor. Baylor fans should be celebrating.
John Calipari at Arkansas is obviously he and Kentucky both needed a fresh start. That's the truest thing I've ever heard. Two parties kind of agree on when it comes to a situation like this. They both needed a fresh start. Do you think this fresh start will allow him to kind of reboot the way he has doing things? Because I think that's probably he didn't become a bad basketball coach. He's still probably the best recruiter in the country when it comes to getting the A-plus talent. He's just not been able to find a way through the modern world as well.
Two things have to happen for him to show this to different Cal. Number one, his staff. Does he get somebody in there that really can make sense of the modernization of the sport and say, Cal, this is how you have to recruit for us to win. You're getting the best players. Now go and get the best players who are in the portal. Go and find the best players who are going to be experienced and who are going to bring that to the table. It's nothing against the high school kid, but you have to start building your roster. The bread and butter of this has to be with experienced players. Now at Arkansas, they're going to be more accepting of all that than the Kentucky fan who's just looking for 5 stars and one and done freshmen. But those days have changed. The time has changed in college basketball. That's number one. And number two, you have to go and get the best players in the portal. And you have to be willing to adapt how you play. You have to be willing to adapt what you do. You have to be willing to listen. Until he listens and sort of opens up his brain trust, if you will, to some new folks, it's not going to be any different. Like, I want to see material changes. If this is a freshman-based roster at Arkansas, why would anyone expect this to be that much different? Other than the fact that here's the deal. Much like Kentucky fans, Arkansas fans are also crazed. They want to win. And, oh, by the way, this seems to be I can promise you this. I got no allegiance to Eric Musselman. I don't even know if Eric Musselman knows who I am. All right? He's maybe met me one time. So I have not covered him much in his career. I would say this, though. I think it's kind of insane that Arkansas had not been to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament since the 90s before Muss got to campus. And in, 5 years? He led that program to the second weekend 3 times and to the Elite Eight twice. And it feels as though because he had one bad year, things have run their course. And so he had to leave because their athletic department and him weren't getting along great. And he needed to change of scenery. And his wife had some West Coast roots. I get it. But, that just came to an end. And I think people were like, yeah, it's over. He left for USC. All right. USC is a significantly lesser job than Arkansas. It's not the job that Arkansas is. It's a very strange carousel move, but it's also a move where I do not feel like there's been much appreciation at all from us, from Arkansas fans. Rather, it's been like, well, you know what? It was time for a change. And wow, we got John Calipari. I'm going to tell you right now, if you sat me down today and said you need to have a guy lead your program for the next 5 years, who are you taking? I would take Eric Musselman 8 days a week over John Calipari. It's nothing against Cal. It's just I think Musselman's a winner. He's won the last 5 years. He's won a heck of a lot more than a lot of other coaches in the country. So for me, the Muss era, the way that it's getting sort of clouded by the fact that, well, now they got the superstar in Cal. Well, if it's a what have you done for me lately world, the pressure's going to be on Cal here. He's not just going to be able to win over Arkansas fans by bringing in 5-star recruits. Musselman was recruiting those types of kids. He was, maybe to a lesser extent, but he still was. Cal's going to have to win. Because if he doesn't win, Arkansas fans are going to say, look at who we just had. We were getting to Elite Eights under Eric Musselman. We expect the same under John Calipari.
Okay, last question. Who do you think's made the best hire so far in this cycle?
That's a great question. I think Louisville got it right with Pat Kelsey. I really do. I think that they got it right with Louisville's in a really weird spot as a program. They need a fresh energy and a guy who's going to grind. Pat Kelsey's up at 4 a.m. every day. He's a hard worker. He's going to put his stamp on this team. The ACC is gettable, more gettable than it has been. Louisville can get up to the middle of this league. It's a good power conference league. It is not otherworldly, right? So to me, they made a smart hire there at Louisville. To me, Washington made a great hire with Danny Sprinkle. All that guy's done is won. He's won at a very high level. That's a nice hire. Oklahoma State by hiring Steve Lutz, another winner, a guy who's done nothing but win and that's an interesting hire there. And then, very sneakily, a mid-major hire off the map, Charleston. Charleston hired Chris Mack. Like, Chris Mack has won a lot of games. And Charleston lost Kelsey, and the thought is, well, are they going to go downhill? You will see Charleston win an NCAA tournament game, if not two, sometime in the next 2 to 3 years. Mack will get them going, and he won't be at Charleston long. He'll get back to the high major ranks.
John Fanta, Field of 68, their podcast is fantastic. Some of the greatest college basketball lines go on there. And, John, thank you so much for hopping on today. We appreciate it. Love when you get on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I think more than anything, right now, the fact that we're talking this much about college hoops, even though the season's over, that's great for the sport. It makes it compelling. It makes it storyline worthy. This is a lot of fun. And to those Baylor fans out there, hit that Mexican restaurant tonight and have some tacos.
Mi casita. John, you ever come here, I'll take you there.
Thank you, my friend. I will. I'll take you up on that.
All right. John Fanta with us here on 365 Sports. Take a break. We'll come back. Our old friend Jason King has many thoughts on this. I cannot wait to hear them. This is 365 Sports.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back to our old friend Jason King. It's been a minute since we've had him on the show, but of all days to bring him back, look, you know Scott well, you know college basketball as good as anybody. This is something, Jason, I always thought would happen eventually, and I wondered under the conditions that it would. that somebody like a Kentucky would come after Scott Drew. And while he did, seriously consider it, ultimately he stayed here. Knowing him as long as you have and as well as you do, what do you think is the biggest deciding factor of not jumping into the big blue water?
Yeah, it's hard to just pinpoint one reason, but I think at the end of the day, I think he realized that, A, that's not for me. I wouldn't like it. My family wouldn't like it. I don't want to deal with all that goes into being the Kentucky coach. Got a taste of that at the Mexican restaurant yesterday. And also, I just think too, sometimes, in various walks of life, you flirt with another job or another opportunity somewhere, and you sit down and start thinking about it, and then you really start to appreciate what you have at your home. You know what I mean? In Waco, Texas. And I think, with a $7 million contract or whatever it is, and the love of the fan base and the new arena and the legacy that he's going to leave there, and how that legacy may have changed a little bit if he were to leave. I think that, sometimes you step back and take a helicopter view of your job and you're thinking, man, I've got a really good, we can do the same things at Baylor that we can do at Kentucky. We already have. They've already won a title, and they've got their programs in great shape. And I just think that, all those things combined just made him realize why leave. And, he could have gone there and been out of a job in 2 years if things didn't go well. He can stay at Baylor and for the rest of his life. And I hope that's what happens. But, I certainly don't think anyone should fault him for listening. I think a lot of jobs these days, there's probably, you can count on one hand the jobs he might entertain, and that understandably would be one of them. But, and kudos for him to doing his research, sending his family up there, all that kind of stuff. But, that Kentucky job isn't for everyone. No. It takes a certain type of person to handle that. I'm not ripping on their program or anything. It is what it is, but I don't know if Scott would have enjoyed that, to be honest. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that.
Have Kentucky fans overvalued their current worth?
I think so. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with just the landscape of college basketball now. Tons of coaches are making huge salaries. There's a lot of passionate fan bases. 15 years ago, who would have thought that you could win a national title at Baylor? Look at some of the schools that have, advanced to the Final Four in the last couple of years that you never would have guessed. I think the playing field is evened out a little bit in terms of like where, good recruits are going and things like that. It's still one of the top programs in the country without question, but to just think it's an insult when the Baylor coach turns you down, like, how could that coach not come here? I think they have. And I think it's not so much a knock on their program. It's just more of a credit to all the other programs across the country stepping up, paying coaches, doing the right things to get recruits, selling out arenas, things like that. There's a lot of attractive places out there now.
I've asked everybody we've had on the show this question today. So if you're Kentucky, who do you hire now?
Well, it's just, of course, I'm not covering it anymore. And so you just read different, obviously if they had the money and could get Dan Hurley, I know that people have said there's no way it's happening, but then there's other people saying that they're still going after him. That would be the one. I do think Billy Donovan would be great. He's turned it down as well. But after that, gosh, who are they going to get? I've always been a Sean Miller guy. He's a little bit abrasive at times and things like that, but I think he's an excellent coach. He's proven he can recruit. He's got some baggage, obviously. If they've hired coaches with baggage before, I think that's a guy they should look at. Not everyone's a Buzz Williams guy. I think he could be a good third or fourth choice if it falls down to him. I really like the way he coaches, the style of basketball he plays. But at the same time, sometimes I kind of think Buzz Williams is like Shaka Smart. I feel like he's going to flourish at certain schools where maybe you don't have to sign the McDonald's All-Americans every year. There's no pressure to do that. You sign a bunch of guys who just want to play hard, play full court defense the whole time, havoc, all that kind of stuff. That's what he did when he was at Marquette. It worked really well. Same thing at Virginia Tech. You send him to Kentucky, you just wonder, is he going to be able to get, one and done, two and done guys to be able to play like that. But he could be a candidate as well, though. So I don't know. What I'm curious to hear your opinion on who you think would be a good fit there.
I think it should be Sean Miller, and I also think that they wouldn't be crazy to talk to Will Wade, just to see that. Now, look, he probably needs another step before he gets to a Kentucky, but the dude can flat out coach. And he and Sean Miller are in the same boat, right? Where everything that they lost their previous jobs for now doesn't matter. It doesnent matter at all. It's not even close to a crime anymore.
Absolutely.
It's like one of those 1750 laws if it's illegal to smoke tobacco next to a cow. Well, it's gone.
Right. I've always thought Sean Miller was a top 10 kind of coach. I know he didn't do as well this year at Xavier, but when he was at Arizona and Pittsburgh and Xavier before, I just always loved the way he coaches. I love his fire, his grit, his passion. I think his players play very, very hard. He's, obviously he's been a good recruiter. I think sometimes with the media he can be a little difficult, so I never had great relations with him there, but I always just really respected him and thought he would be good. And obviously he took a hit when he got in a little bit of trouble, but that's who I would look at, without question. My thing is I guess Kelvin Sampson was he just too old at 68?
I think so. Yeah.
Man, he's so good. I'm more and more impressed with him. Every time I watch them play. But I guess maybe they just want to get someone a little younger, so because his name's never mentioned. So, but yeah, I tell you what though. I think this whole thing has been a real dose of reality and a little bit of an ego jolt to those Kentucky fans. And you hit it on the head. It's not. I don't want to say it's not as prestigious as it was, but there's just so many other people or so many other schools that are up there now.
Well, part of it, and look, I think the COVID year changed a lot of this in that when you've got 24-year-old guys, and this is what Kentucky's run up against, your one and dones can be great, but you're the only school who's, really doing that right now. So,
right.
So when they run up against those veteran guys, it's just different. And when everybody was trying to do what Kentucky was doing, they were going to be the best at it. But now they're not. Now it's a big melting pot of whatever's going to work for us the best we're going to do. And there's more than just those options of let's just get these guys who are definitely going to be NBA players.
Right. The model doesn't work anymore. It served them pretty well for a while there. And they won a championship with it and almost won another one. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with signing a couple of one and done players, but you've got to mix in those veterans because, those guys may be better NBA players, but when they're 18 years old, they don't have the toughness mentally, especially, and maybe not physically at that point in their life to compete with some of these seniors that are, grizzled and have, won in big time arenas and big time environments and won under pressure. There's a lot to be said for that. And maybe those seniors aren't the ones that are getting drafted first, but they're the ones that are equipped to win championships in college. And, we saw it with Baylor when they won the title. Was there not a lot of one and dones on that team, or if any? So my brain is fried right now. But yeah, it's just, you sign Kendall Brown, and that's fine, or Jeremy Sohan, fine, but who are they mixed in with? Those guys, brought out the best with them. The culture, helped them and kind of maybe mask their inexperience a little bit, and they flourished. But to have a whole team basically that's full of those kind of players is just not going to work anymore. And Kentucky proved that.
Do you think he'll adapt at Arkansas?
I do. I think he'll be forced to change a little bit. He is a very good coach, and I really like John Calipari. He was always – I dealt with him as much as any coach out there probably when I was covering the national beat. And I think it was a good move for him. I think he's probably refreshed and rejuvenated. But, yeah, I do think he'll have to change some things a little bit. But, they'll sell out that arena and go crazy. He'll get kids, and they'll be competitive. He's getting up there in age too. You wonder, how bright the fire still burns or how hot it is. But, it must be because he's incredibly, incredibly wealthy now. He doesn't have to keep doing this, and he does. So that says a lot about his competitive fire, and I hope he does do well. He takes a lot of hits from people, but I've seen him do some really nice things for people and be a good person. And I think deep down he's a great person, and I'm glad he moved on because, you know, it was time. I mean, he was definitely underachieving and I'm sure he wasn't happy and the fans weren't happy. It was just a toxic situation. I'm glad he got out of it.
Jay King, always great to talk to you, my friend. I haven't seen you and it's been too long. It's been far too long.
I know.
So
I'll be back there soon, man. It's good to hear your voice and missed everyone in Waco. I thought you guys did a great job covering stuff. Ashley Hodge, I talked to him about 11:30 last night, and he goes, "Man, I go, man, he's." And it was funny because earlier in the day, you know, he was kind of nervous, and then he apparently got some info in the wee hours or the late night hours. I went to bed with a smile on my face because he had me convinced he was staying, and he was right. So great job by all of you covering this, and shout out to Darby Brown too for being at the airport yesterday in Temple. You know, I always get kind of amused when, and I know you probably got to go, but I always get kind of amused when, you know, situations like this are out there, and there's just so many erroneous reports, and, you know, you've got people like Greg Swain, whatever, just convincing the world that it's done, and they're setting up the press conference tables. I'm like, God, there's so much bad reporting out there. It just drives me crazy, but it also kind of makes me laugh. It's just like, how could y'all be that bad? You know, and it's a credit to Sikkim and some of the national guys for not jumping the gun and making sure their sourcing was great and just being patient and waiting for the story to break or waiting to report things accurately. And you guys are the ones that come across looking good while a lot of people have egg on their face today. So nice job by everyone.
All right. Thanks, Jason. I'll see you soon, man. Call me when you're in town.
Take care, y'all. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Jason King, old friend of ours. You know what's funny is, like, there's all these people who are saying, like, this and this and this, and I'm like, nobody, like, not even just us, like Jeff Goodman, who Scott has a really close relationship with, like all these, like, media people who talk to Scott regularly, none of them have said anything yet. No. And then guess what? We all got it at the same time. You know, like, we all knew, and we all reported at the same time because he knew, like, so that's, you know, the Ashleys and yeah, it just was one of those things that, you know, look, if he left, I wasn't going to be that surprised. But the fact that we hadn't heard anything about it, we got these people go, it's definitely Scott Drew. And you're like, I don't know about that. I haven't heard that from anybody who actually knows the man. Yeah. Like, if somebody who knew him said it, like, that's why it actually made me nervous yesterday. Because it was like, you hear it in his voice, like, oh, man, oh, boy. But that was not the case. When we come back, a change of pace. Mickey Spagnola and I will talk Dallas Cowboys and the draft. This is 365 Sports. Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely. And I always like to say, you know, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary and trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com.
This is Craig Smokes Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome back. Craig is not here today. Sorry, that's kind of our standard Tuesday, Thursday Break 5 rejoin, and I forgot that he's not going to be here, and that even if he was here, he'd be at Baylor practice. So my apologies on that. And we'll give just a couple seconds so that Emery can cut that out of the video. Okay. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, joins us now. Mickey's on his way to the Stars game tonight, they're red hot right now. So he's picking a good time to go. Mickey, I wanted to talk through a theory I have with you on dead money and the salary cap.
All right.
Because the Cowboys are going to have some with Dak Prescott. Obviously, if they don't eventually get an extension done, which I still believe that they're going to. And the reason I do is that for a guy who is still effective and at the peak of his career like Dak is right now, just had his best ever season and finished second in MVP voting, dead money for a guy like that in your cap is unacceptable. Dead money for a guy in your cap that, got hurt, is ineffective, that you have to move on from because now he's just kind of taking up a roster spot and you can get better. That's acceptable rent to pay if you can navigate through the other things. But dead money for letting a guy like Dak walk would just be something that, especially for the 2 years you'd have it, would be kind of a silly thing to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, and, just because they haven't done an extension at this point, which, by the way, there's $40 million of dead money in the voided years, right? Which would be pretty hard to, accept and go forward. And knowing you still need another quarterback. But because there hasn't been an extension done doesn't mean they don't want to do it. It takes two to tango. So you don't know what the other side's asking for. And the Cowboys might be going, well, I don't know about that. We're going to have to let this thing play out. So, again, I think people need to understand that. The same thing with the other question I get, Paul, is, well, why haven't they done the extension for CeeDee Lamb? He's going to cost $18 million against the cap for his fifth-year option. You got to be able to extend him and lower the cap cost for this year. And you would like to, right? But guess what? Justin Jefferson's in the same boat. And so now the agents are sitting there going, well, I don't want to be the first one to sign because what if I sign my guy and the other one goes, oh, he gets $2 or $3 million a year more than my guy and I look bad. So there's a little bit of a tug of war, I bet, going on with that one too.
Mickey, there's been some scuttlebutt about Micah Parsons lately, which I find kind of silly. What is, can you speak to that a little bit about, the rumors that the Cowboys are a little, worn out by his kind of personality, which I don't understand that.
Well, he can be a handful. Mm-hmm. We can start there. I don't know about being worn out compared to what he provides you, right? Mm-hmm. And again, and there's another guy that, the fifth-year option for next year is $21 million. So, yeah, you would like to do an extension there. But, again, it takes two to tango. And it certainly didn't help out the Cowboys any that Buffalo
Yeah.
re-signed their guy, their defensive tackle. I'm forgetting his name.
Ed Oliver?
Derek Brown? Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Re-signed their guy. Derek Brown, is that right?
Derek Brown was Carolina. Josh Allen is Jacksonville.
Josh Allen, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh Allen, and he's going to average $30 million a year. And it's like, well, I'm sure, Micah Parsons looking at that and going, okay, in 5 years, he only has 5 more sacks than I had in 3 years. And he's been to only 2 Pro Bowls, and I've been to 3. So what do you think he's thinking on an extension? So, yeah, Jacksonville didn't do him any favors by signing that deal. And $88 million of it is guaranteed, by the way, which is the important part, right? It matches the most guaranteed for a defensive lineman out there. So when people look at the stuff and it's like, why aren't the Cowboys doing things? Well, here's a good example. These are 3 guys they certainly would like to extend, but at how much? And they're already over the salary cap for next year. So it's a difficult thing to be able to handle. And I think people need to be able to understand that.
Mickey, how far deep are you into your draft preparations?
Well, I look at the first round guys, but you know what? You can do all the preparation you want, Paul, but they're 24th.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to do a heck of a lot of preparation to figure out what the first 23 teams are going to do, right? Mm-hmm. And I get it. It's fun. The mock drafts are out there. But again, what's going to be available at 24? And they've got enough needs that they don't have to pigeonhole one position. And, I was just writing for tomorrow, if you look at the mock draft, and nothing against if you do a mock draft, but most everybody's got the Cowboys taking an offensive tackle. Okay. But a couple that I've looked at, they've gotten the 6th offensive tackle in the first round. Do I want the 6th best offensive tackle just because I need a tackle? And I've got one that plays guard right now that is a tackle. And when he's played tackle, he's pretty damn good. Is the 6th best tackle in the draft going to be better than Tyler Smith? So I think, everybody's got to take that into consideration on what's left. Do I get the leftovers in the first round at tackle? And even if it's a deep deal, I think the other thing we got to realize is in the 64 or 63 history of the Cowboys draft, they've only taken 3 tackles in the first round. And the first one wasn't until 1981 with Howard Richards.
I didn't even think about that. But when you think about all the guys who have been, Larry Allen, well, he was a guard first and then he was a tackle. Eric Williams, none of those guys were first rounders.
Well, Larry Allen was a second rounder.
Yeah,
he was a guard that they got forced to use at tackle for 1 year, and then he went back to guard. Nate Newton came from the USFL.
Yeah.
All these guys that they had, Rayfield Wright in the Hall of Fame, he was a basketball player that played football and came as a tight end and then a defensive end. And then it was like, oh, maybe he can play tackle. And then he ends up in the Hall of Fame. So, again, you can't get stuck on a position because you get yourself in trouble. And I looked this up. The last time the Cowboys took the 6th player at a particular position in the first round was Taco Charlton, defensive end.
Yeah.
How did that turn out?
Well, they could get the 1st or 2nd center, which they also need.
And that was the point of my column.
Yeah.
Can you move Tyler Smith to tackle, and you can find a guard either on the team or later in the draft, and then the guy that's going to touch the ball 60 times a game, well, what if I use that on a first-round pick like I did with Travis Frederick? And the guy that kind of caught my eye was Zach Frazier, West Virginia. The other guy with the double last name.
Jackson Powers Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, he's had an injury history. And there's some questions about his hip and multiple concussions. So when I saw, I'm no draft expert, but I know if I look at somebody play, it looks like they can play. This guy from West Virginia looks like he can play. Now, you might not take him at 24. You might trade down, sort of what they did for Travis Frederick. I think Travis Frederick, they went from 18th to 31st and ended up with a Pro Bowl center. So, center is a pretty important position right now. And I think you're right. I think that they very well could look at that. And somebody might say, like they did for Travis Frederick, if you remember, Paul, it's like, well, you could have got that guy in the second round. Well, by the time you got to the 47th pick in the second round, Travis Frederick wasn't going to be there. So they got Travis Frederick and a third-round pick that just happened to be Terrence Williams, who turned into a starting wide receiver. Yeah. So I think that's something they got to keep an eye on.
Mickey, I think just given the amount of draft picks they have and the amount of needs they have, that trading back is probably a strategy that some years it doesn't make sense to me. Like sometimes it's like, I guess they just didn't feel good. Sometimes you see teams and they're like, oh, we're set everywhere. And that's never a good attitude to have because you never know when a guy's going to tear his Achilles or something. But this year, just given the needs they have, the cap situation, and how they're going to have to fill roster spots, trading back once or twice, just a couple picks, to me makes a lot of sense in picking up guys who could contribute to your team this year because, and we talked about it before, if they're going to take the best available at whatever, position they are and whatever pick they are, there's not a lot of positions where you'd be like, well, that's a dumb idea. Like there's really not. They have needs all over the place.
No, exactly. And so I'll guarantee you when they get to 24, it normally in a normal year when they get first round grades, they end up with 15 to maybe 18, stretching to 20 of guys with first round grades. By the time you get to 24, I bet all the first round grades are gone. And so you say, well, okay, there's not many positions I don't need. So if I trade down and I got 5 guys that I say, if I end up with any one of them, I'll feel good about it. Then, yeah, you trade down, get a third round pick, or trade down a little and get a fourth, and then again and get a third. I could see that happening and get some extra draft picks because think about it. They've got 7. Well, if you get 7 and get contributions from 3 the first year, you're doing good. But what if I have 9? Well, okay, maybe I up the ante on available, what I can get. So yeah, I think that's a real possibility because I can't imagine you're going to have somebody with a first round grade. Say he's the 15th guy with a first round grade, and he falls already to 24. And you got to be asking yourself, did I screw up the grade or am I getting really lucky?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mickey, enjoy that Stars game tonight.
They could solidify their division the division title, and potentially what everybody else does, they could get the conference title too by beating Winnipeg.
Well, that would be great if they did. Mick, we'll talk to you again next week.
Okay, Paul. Good talking with you.
Right. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, with us here on 365 Sports. When we come back, Kendall Couch. Can't wait for this. He's gonna have many thoughts.
Yes, he is.
He and Ashley did a podcast that was really good yesterday too. So we'll get his thoughts next. This is 365 Sports.
It's It's Dodge Power Shot Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Experience the adrenaline-pumping performance and cutting-edge technology of Dodge. From the sleek and stylish 2023 Charger to the performance and muscle of a Challenger to the bold and rugged Durango. During Dodge Power Shot Days, we're offering amazing deals and special incentives that will make driving a new Dodge even more exhilarating. Don't miss out on these exclusive savings. Visit Allen Samuels in Waco today and unleash the power of Dodge.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Are you ready to elevate your Waco experience to a whole new level? Look no further than the Baylor Club, where you can indulge in one-of-a-kind luxury and unwind in our exclusive lounge area. Located in the heart of McLean Stadium, this elite club offers five-star member atmosphere for all your work and play needs. With a master culinary team and outstanding hospitality, we take pampering to a whole new level. Weddings, milestones, businesses, and birthdays. A stadium roaring with Bear spirit featuring stunning city skyline views. The Baylor Club truly has it all. The Baylor Club is the destination for Baylor basketball pregame meals, beverages with this special membership offer. If you mention Sikkim 365 or 365 Sports Radio, just ask for John or Devin for details. For interest in membership or your next private event, call 254-710-8080 or Google Baylor Club Linktree for more information on menus, calendars, upcoming special events. Say yes to the Baylor Club today. 254-710-8080 or Google Baylor Club Linktree.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome back. Kendall Count, Sikkim365.com. And Kendall, what have the last 24 hours been like for you?
Pretty crazy time, Paul. You thought for a minute he was gone, then you thought he was staying, then maybe gone again. Then finally the news that our own Ashley Hodge breaks that he's staying. So wild times indeed for Baylor. What a unusual 24 hours. I think one of the craziest 24 I've covered since at least the national title game.
What did you think was going to happen when you, what do you think would have been the reason if he would have left?
I think it would have been if he thought this was definitively the best chance to win a national title and he felt like his full family was on board. I think that combination had to happen. I think maybe at the end he felt like there was a little bit better shot to win a title at Kentucky, but I don't think the family was fully on board. I think that probably meant a lot to him. I think if you combine, there's still a really good shot to win a national title at Baylor. It's not worth upsetting the second one. And I think maybe some of those factors about how crazy Kentucky's fans can be might have set in for him toward the end.
What do you think this means going forward for Baylor's recruiting that he's been able to tell Louisville and Kentucky no in the span of 10 days?
I think it'll definitely boost it for those two reasons, Paul. Certainly first is the one you mentioned. Kentucky will be up for a lot of recruits, whether Mark Pope is their next coach or Sean Miller or whoever they'll have to turn to, presuming Billy Donovan doesn't want the job. And I think it also helps him beyond just being able to say, hey, I was given the opportunity to go to Kentucky. I looked at all the resources. I know how great it is, and I chose to stay here. I think will help with landing that one-and-done talent. And on top of that, I would expect some NIL boost on top of the more recent NIL boost Baylor's already gotten from the Louisville overture. So I think there's going to be an NIL boost that will also help him. So I think this combination does help Drew going forward with recruiting.
So the Kentucky bubble is a lot the Kentucky world's a lot bigger, but the bubble is a little bit smaller. He is not a guy to me that would enjoy that. And also, Kentucky's a job to me you take if you're successful, you want to coach at least another 15, 20 years, which I don't think he does. So all this kind of adds up to they went and tried to get a guy who Mitch Barnhart really likes, but ultimately, may not even really, even though I think he'd do a good job there, it's not a fit, right?
I didn't think it was a fit at all. Ashley and I did a podcast late last night that some folks might have had a chance to listen to. And to expound upon some things I had mentioned, Paul, I didn't see a fit there at all. And why I didn't see a fit is that, Scott is relentlessly positive. When things aren't going well, he wants to be able to tell you, hey, here's A, B, and C that's going to go well for us in the future, or here's the things that we've done well that make me think we're going to be good going forward. Kentucky would just be a miserable slog for a lot of this. You'd be on ESPN talking about, why aren't you doing this, this, and this? If you land all the one-and-dones and have the same results as Cal, they'd say, well, Cal at least won a title doing this. If you don't land the one-and-dones, they'd say, why can't we recruit anymore at Kentucky? What are we doing hiring you if you can't recruit? It really is a no-win situation unless you make the Final Four. Then if you make enough Final Fours, it's why haven't you done what Danny Hurley does? So I think the expectations at Kentucky obviously should be high, like they would be at Alabama for football. But I think they've gotten a little bit out of whack where John Calipari, being a 2 and a 3 seed, because he faces an upset where St. Peter's goes nuclear and one guy from Oakland goes crazy, would really spell that nobody is long for Kentucky. They don't have the kind of brand loyalty that even a Kansas has toward Bill Self when he was having some early tournament exits, or that North Carolina would have for Roy Williams when he didn't make the NCAA tournament. That is the most toxic fan base at some level, where if you don't win to the level they demand immediately, you're gone. And even if you win, you're not ever going to be Adolph Rupp. So I just think that's a job that unless you're 40 years old, you plan to be there for 30 years, and that's your dream job. I don't like that job for most people. For me, after having kind of explored all this, where would you want to be hired? I don't think that's a job I'd want as much as I'd want to be the coach at KU or, frankly, even UCLA.
Kansas and Kentucky are an interesting story, and you know this because you live up there and you're about to marry one of them, a situation you and I are familiar with uniquely. Kansas fans they don't complain about Bill Self the way Kentucky fans complain about John Calipari, and they went between 2008 and 2022 between winning a title. It was always, there was more trust in there that eventually he'll get the right guys. It was never like, this is so tired and dumb and all this other stuff. It was never that way with Bill Self, but it was that way with Kentucky fans. And I think that's the stark difference between the two, even though the fan bases are similarly huge and know basketball a lot better than a lot of fan bases.
I think completely. Bill Self doesn't make any Final Fours between 2013 and 2018 until he gets on that good run with the Malik Monk team, and KU fans still like him. North Carolina, Roy Williams misses the tournament, but they remember, hey, in year 2 he won us a national title. I mean, Calipari went to the Final Four in 2011, 2012, 2014, 2015, won a national title, and in 2020 had a really good team. The Malik Monk team was excellent that he had as well, and it just didn't matter because all they would think about was, well, why did we lose to North Carolina in a close Elite Eight game, or Luke May makes a shot? Or if Bam Adebayo was so good, why couldn't we win these games? Or if Oscar Tshiebwe was the player of the year, why do we lose those? Like, these are fair criticisms to some degree that maybe Cal should get a little bit more out of what can happen at Kentucky. But, if you didn't have the next guy lined up, it's kind of weird that you would run Cal off like they did. And I think he was very open to changing his recruiting just a little bit. But I think that really speaks to it's just such a nasty place because their fans are all in on basketball and they think they should be the best team every season. And they just don't accept anything less than titles. And I was at the KU Kentucky Champions Classic this year. And look, with a fan base that big, there are going to be a lot of great fans as well. But I do think there are more crazy fans among Kentucky's fan base than you find from Carolina, KU, Duke, UCLA combined.
Yeah, it is. It's a different kind of thing. All right, well, if you were Kentucky, where do you go? I've asked everybody this today.
I think you make entreaties to Billy Donovan. And if he's willing to at least express interest, you hold off for it. And if that doesn't work, I think Mark Pope at BYU makes a lot of sense. Runs NBA offenses with the type of talent he'd get at Kentucky. That would work out well. And he's a pretty tough guy. Has experience in the NBA as well. Won a national title at Kentucky. And so it's not like Louisville just hiring Kenny Payne. You know he's had actual success as a head coach. So I think Mark Pope says yes. I don't think you want to get more than Mark Pope on your list, but I think you can wait for whether Billy Donovan wants the job. And if the Bulls get bounced in the play-in tournament, maybe he figures, I'll go to Kentucky for 4 or 5 years, try and win a title, and then if I don't like Kentucky, I'll just go back to the NBA after that.
What do you think about Sean Miller?
I don't like that hire for him, Paul. And the reason I'd say that is you just ran Cal out for not winning enough. Well, Sean Miller never reached the heights that Cal did at Arizona. He lost to 2 really good Wisconsin teams in the Elite Eight, but he had no Final Fours to Arizona. Doesn't make the tournament this year at Xavier, and you can say, well, the program took a turn from Chris Mack leaving to where it is now. But I don't know. I just don't think he's had that sustained success lately. And, you know, he seems like a nice enough guy, but you kind of got to wonder, he was really getting it done at Arizona when there were reports about was he paying players. DeAndre Ayton, the wiretap story from ESPN, whether that was true or not, who knows on that front. But some of the guys that Baylor was looking at sure seemed to be going there where there were reports about maybe some funky money stuff going on. And that's not me saying it was evil he paid players, but it's me saying his advantage may have been he was able to pay some guys back in the day. And when you don't have that advantage anymore, I don't know if you win. And he also is always so stressed out. I mean, he's famous for sweating through his shirts. I don't know that he has the demeanor to survive at Kentucky. So I wouldn't like that hire for them. And I think Mark Pope has proven himself in a much tougher place in BYU than Sean Miller proved himself vis-a-vis Arizona. So I don't think that would be a good hire for him, but I think that is one of the names you got to look at. But I think Pope would be clearly a better choice for them than Miller.
Kendall, how'd the meeting go today? Did you get everything? Did you win?
It was a good meeting. It was just drove down to Wichita, spoke at a conference for some probation officers with a buddy of mine, and now we're driving back from Wichita. I'm not the driver right now. But it was a good conference for us. Pretty funny that I think I had like 95 text messages when I finally pulled over for gas because the news broke from the national folks that Ashley had already broken that Drew was staying. And so I was getting texts from people that I rarely text with saying, oh, thank God he's staying. Yeah, we didn't want him to go to Kentucky. That's great. So wild day of texts coming in.
Yeah. By the way, I was on the phone with Ashley when the story went out, and he didn't know if it was like ready yet. Like he was still like, oh, I got to make sure that like it's like, let me check my phone. I've been talking to you and make sure that we can. If not, we might have jumped the gun here. But no, it was us and then like, you know, everyone else. So absolutely. Well, Kendall, have a safe trip back, and we'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
Always a pleasure, Paul.
All right. That's Kendall Kaut, Singum365.com. And yeah, I don't disagree with anything he said. I do think it's interesting, like diving into the KU versus Kentucky fans. Like, if you want to know the difference,
right?
Like, Duke fans never said Coach K had lost it.
No,
and he never did. But
no, he didn't.
North Carolina fans go up and down, so there may be a more fair comparison. But they still are pretty loyal to their guy.
Yeah.
Like Kansas fans never complain about Bill Self. They never complain about Bill Self because they, again, know that, like, hey, if it's not Bill Self, who's it going to be?
Right.
Like, you're not, like, you know, they worry about, like, they've never worried about losing Bill Self to another job. They've worried about Greg Popovich retiring and the Spurs going, that's the guy we want.
We want Bill.
Because he like coaches that same kind of style, right? And I don't think either of those, like, Greg Popovich is going to seemingly coach until he evaporates. And Bill Self is not like he's going to retire at Kansas and, you know, have a you know a statue that looks like the Sam Houston one coming out of the woods.
Right, that's a massive thing.
Honestly, you're like when you drive past that statue, doesn't it look like it's Godzilla like coming out of the woods to wreak havoc?
It's the way it's set up. It's literally
because he's like
he's coming right out of the trees.
Yeah, he's coming out of the trees,
insane.
And his knee is bent like he's about to stomp. It's such a like. I remember the first time I saw it, and I was like, I mean, it's an awesome looking statue.
Pretty dope, yeah.
It's a great looking statue. It's very cool, but it does like it's not in the middle. Like it's just on the highway, and it's the highway, Sam Houston statue, and the woods. And so it looks like somebody's awakened him,
right?
And he's he's out for blood. Just rah! So, yeah, I like that's all I've always thought about it.
I was interested there with Kendall when talking about the Sean Miller, because I think he brought up a point that I don't necessarily think I considered, and I'm still don't know if I agree with it totally, where he was talking about having the advantages over other people because you were paying players. While that's fair to an extent, I think if you look across college basketball, there were about 5 or 6 other programs that you could probably point to doing the exact same thing at the same time. Probably more, honestly, if you're going to get down to it. So I'm kind of hesitant on that. But the point that he brings up about Sean Miller, how he carries himself and how he goes through the games and the sweating, that's something where I don't know if I think he could handle it, but I don't know how long he could. I don't know how long it could be sustainable there. But as far as his point with the paying, I think there's some credence to that. But I also think that there were other people doing it, so it wouldn't be not necessarily that big of an advantage at the time when Miller was at Arizona. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. But yeah, it's Kentucky's in a weird spot right now, man.
I never thought I would see that. Like, I grew up here. Like, I grew up seeing the absolute worst of Baylor. Like, I never thought there would be a situation where Kentucky would not get a coach from Baylor if they wanted. Like, this is something I don't think I ever imagined happening, is Scott Drew staying in Waco with having the opportunity to go to Kentucky, or any coach for that matter when it comes to the standards.
Yeah. Look, this is the best news that Baylor's gotten in quite a long time.
Quite a long time.
I mean, it feels like quite a long time. But, and it's great. Look, it's great news for Mack Rhodes because, it allows him to kind of focus on football a little bit more right now, as opposed to having to replace, a legendary basketball coach. You've got that solidified. That's on you now. Like, this opportunity in these last 10 days have allowed you to solidify an NIL situation and all these other things that I know Scott has used this opportunity to lock those things up, and move forward. So you don't have to worry about men's basketball for a very long time. And you can focus on everything else that needs help right now, particularly the big moneymaker, which is football. And I do think that when it comes to football, they have checked every box they're supposed to. Like, if they had a checklist of, like, make sure you change these things or attempt to change these things before next season. They've finished the checklist box. They've done that. Obviously you can always add something to, like, we did this, like, it's basically done, but we can add more to it. But they've got to win.
Yes.
Like, they just have to win. It has to work. We don't know if it's going to work yet. And I will not be at the spring game next week, so I won't get to see them. But I have found spring games less and less valuable, especially given that the formats have gotten used to. They would play a full, like, slobber knocker like game. They would do things. You could see things. Now, like, depending on where you are, man, they're just the most boring things to watch.
Yeah,
like it's just like, because you're just watching a glorified practice. It's a scrimmage. Like, it's just.
But didn't Baylor have, like, some really weird structure to their spring game? You
can't follow it.
Yeah, I'm not with that.
It's like, so you're just kind of out there watching guys run and catch and hit, and like, oh, well, that's neat, but. And look, if we get the opportunity to go to Cowboys training camp again, I'm going to go on a heartbeat. I love Cowboys training camp. It's very educational to me, except I watch about 20% of the practices I could.
Right.
Because eventually I'm like, all right, well, let me see, like, here's who everybody's talking about. Let me go watch them. Let me see why this is. Like, we'll see that. And you can see things in practice. You can definitely see guys, but and sometimes you can see things that doesn't translate. Like, everybody we talked to said, look, Michael Gallup looks like himself again. Well, he's not on the team anymore. It's just like one of those deals. So it's so hard to gauge these things. I've watched teams in warm-ups in basketball literally not miss a shot.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Kansas got beat by Auburn the night that Baylor got beat by Gonzaga in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
But the night before, Kansas, or the game before, Kansas drilled whoever they were playing badly. I mean, it's one of those things where it's stop the fight.
Right, yeah. Throw in the towel.
Throw the damn towel. That was what it was like. And, but I remember watching that team in warmups and I was like, man, Bill Self might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Like they've got 6 guys who are just draining every shot. Like not even hitting the rim. Like it just out there smooth. They were calm. And then the minute the horn went off to start the game, it was like, oh, no, we're nervous now.
Yeah, the pressure, yeah.
The pressure got to them. So all those things don't matter. I've watched dudes in football practices absolutely. Guys who don't make the roster. Mm-hmm. Just I've watched a couple guys whip Zach Martin's ass. And maybe because Zach Martin's not
trying to earn a spot.
Trying to be a hero. But then you're like, oh, well, I mean, because he practices hard, so it's not like that. But then, they go up against a guy who's also not going to make the roster, on his own team, and just get dominated. And I'm like, buddy.
Makes no sense.
What were you doing? What happened? See, you're not afraid of Zach Martin, but you're somehow afraid of also cut? Sports is a weird, unquantifiable thing most of the time when it comes to that. So, I don't know. But now Baylor can turn their attention to football. And now that this is kind of over, so can we.
Yes.
And other things. So I'm curious from the chat room. Are there sports that we don't talk about that you would like us to hear more from us?
Oh, good question.
I would like to know that from the chat room. Are there things that we don't talk about that often that Paul, we need to get a Balcones bottle over to Mac's office. Yeah.
For real.
Well, also need to send some boosters. Maybe Chip Gaines, too. Chip was playing. Look, Chip Gaines was doing his best Mark Vidal around the rim yesterday. He was the villain to all the Kentucky fans. So, but are there any subjects that we do not cover as much that you would like to hear more of? Even if it's not on the show, if we did short little content things about college baseball or Major League Baseball or whatever that you guys would watch. Because even if it's not maybe part of the show, we can do a segment. We can put it out there. You can watch it at your convenience. It'll be nice and short. It can be an aperitif to the meal that is 365 Sports.
Well, one thing I know we talk about it every once in a while. I'm curious to get your opinion on this.
UW fan Jim says the Washington Huskies. You know what, buddy? I got you. Well, yeah. Well, look, I have no problem. We'll get Softy once a month.
Oh yeah.
We'll try to make that happen. Just to get Softy. We may not even talk about you. We'll talk about UW a little bit, but.
So, what are your thoughts right now on the Shohei Ohtani incident with his? The interpreter is finally guilty. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, look, he's being charged. It looks like he's going to plead out of that thing. Whatever's going to happen. I have a lot of, this is good news for Rob Manfred because whatever happens is going to seemingly exonerate Ohtani. But nobody noticed that $16 million was missing.
I don't care how much money you have. How do you not notice that?
Here's the thing. I have a new goal in life. I would like to be so filthy, disgusting rich that somebody has to call me and tell me I'm out $16 million.
Yes.
That is an unbelievable thing. So, I mean, that's the hardest part for me.
That was my thing. It's even if you didn't do it or you weren't involved, if you're Ohtani, the fact that you do not notice that is suspicious to me on some terms. I know you got people probably taking care of your accounts and everything, but at the same time, somebody, whether it wasn't you personally, somebody in your circle that you have over your, obviously it was the interpreter. You got to get a better people around you.
Yeah. It's just there's so. I'm always going to wonder about it.
Speaking of chip gains, Scott Drew just posted on Twitter a picture of Siloe baking. It's probably those cupcakes they have.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Thank you, Chip Gaines, for the cupcakes for our staff. So Chip Gaines wins once again.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Huh. Yeah. Well, good. Those are good cupcakes.
They are pretty good cupcakes.
Right. So the first time I went over there, this just tells you how different things are. Was with my in-laws. It was before the wedding, but they're my in-laws now. And my sister-in-law, Carrie, and Amanda. The Silos had been here for years. I had never set foot in it because, again, what am I going to do there?
Exactly.
Now, I will say this, and we had them here in the show one day. We brought food. Young Day brought trash can rice bowls. So my friend has a food truck over there, but I always thought that, I'll just get him to bring me one. As opposed to park and go through all that stuff. But we were the big thing we did is so we get through the whole rigmarole of all the stores and all those things, and fine. It's a very lovely place. It's very nice. It's a nice place to spend an afternoon or morning. But then it was kind of crowded because it was a weekend, and we waited in line for the cupcakes for about 40 minutes. And I was like, we came in 2 cars. I mean, I'll wait here for the show. But my father-in-law and I wound up waiting while they went and did a couple other things. And by that time, it was the escape route's kind of over. At this point, it would be just kind of rude to be well, we'll see you 7 minutes after we get home. But I remember that was long, but it was worth the wait. It was worth the wait. And I'm not a person Smokey gets very annoyed when we've gone on the road. Going to Kansas, Joe's Kansas City, which used to be Oklahoma Joe's. The first time we went, I was we've got to go there. I don't know when I'm going to come back. So on our way to town, we stopped there, and it was about a 40-minute line, which for Joe's Kansas City's not really a bad. Yeah. It's kind of a good pace. And he was just so, it was like somebody lit his shoes on fire. He was oh God. So I was but it was worth the wait.
Did he enjoy it though?
Yeah, he did enjoy it. He enjoyed it. And then he was but I don't know if any, I'm yes. All right. Look, I've gone and I'll sit in the line at Franklin Barbecue. Because when you do it, you make it an event. It's all about how you approach things. Yes. If you're in a rush, you don't do that. But we weren't in a rush. We had an 8-hour drive ahead of us, which was the last time we did that. Yeah. He was just getting over being sick. He hadn't had a decent meal in 3 days.
So he needed it.
Yeah. Okay. I was helping. We actually didn't even drive all the way. We stopped and stayed at a Holiday Inn Express.
See, that's probably because you stopped and got the food.
Because, we needed a nap.
See?
We stopped in Oklahoma City because that 4 hours feels like 36.
That's what I haven't seen yet, but I do not
want to see it just because the scenery doesn't change.
Yeah.
And because of that, you have no, markers. Because especially if you're used to a drive or okay, this is coming up, this is coming up. Right. But there's nothing that changes. So it feels longer than it is. So it's one of those things how long have we been here? And it's 10 minutes. You're no. Yeah, it's
one of those Odessa drives.
Yes.
Ugh,
yes.
Those are the worst.
So, Retired Stockbroker says, now it all comes full circle. During the blackout, Smokey went to buy toilet paper for the show, and now Paul wants a bidet installed. Just play. Hey, there's already a bidet installed.
Oh, he's had that installed for about 6 months at least?
Maybe a year.
Oh, probably a year.
Maybe a year. Yeah. Listen, I'm not messing around.
You're all messing around.
Life. I'm in my 40s. I'm not doing it the gross way anymore. Come on.
Don't want that carpal tunnel for the reach.
I'm living life. Come on now. So, yeah. Listen, if there's one thing I can do, if my tombstone has a little bidet on it.
It's a little splash pad.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine. I want to change America in positive ways.
We'll just call it like a dog water or something.
No,
Let the dog
I want people to know.
You straight up.
Thank you. I want people, when I'm gone, I want them to thank you for helping with that situation. We did not know what we were missing.
Grave.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, that's what I want. So, yeah. Want one installed. You don't think I have one installed here? I'm here like 6 hours a day.
Gotta stay fresh and clean.
I gotta live my life. If we ever move buildings, believe me, there's one going in there too. Look, if I got the company I wanted in charge, I would say, like, to make this your test market. I will convert this town. You come in, I'll convert this town. Waco today, New York City tomorrow.
Big task ahead.
Then we're going to Toronto. We're going. Well, worldwide, they're already kind of in on it. Like they're
more advanced.
Most countries. Look, Japan. Most of Japan is pretty clean.
Yes,
very clean. They pick up their own trash, like all these things.
They live in the future.
They carry a little trash bag. There's a show I love on Netflix called Old Enough. You would love it. It's very short. You watch it in like little short bursts, but it's been on for years in Japan. What they do is they take these little kids. Well, I'm not talking little kids, like 2 and 3 years old, and they send them on errands by themselves.
Well, it's one of the safest countries. You see kids all. Yes, it's not like here.
I believe America is one of the greatest countries in the world, and I believe that we can strive to be number one. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't adopt ideas from people who have good ones, like Japan.
Yeah,
like Japan. So anyway. All right. When we come back, the top 5 Plan Bs for Kentucky. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 Plan Bs for Kentucky. And Mark Pope is not on this list just because I Didn't think they would go for it, but maybe they will. Number 5, this is a retread a little bit of earlier in the week, but I've moved some things around.
Yeah.
But now that, earlier in the week, it didn't get as much play as I thought it would because I think everybody thought that Scott Drew was just the guy, that he was going to say yes and go. Didn't happen. He went and had some chips at Mi Casita. Realized what he'd be missing.
We've heard Jerome.
I'll tell you, here's another thing he would miss. There's no one who loves crazy wings more than Scott Drew.
That's funny.
And I'm dead ass serious about that. They don't have those.
I was thinking, when you said that about the Mexican food, it made me think when we had Jerome Tang on and he was talking about the tortillas and how he had to learn to make them himself. It's the same type of situation.
Yeah. No, look, hey, last year, I'm going to tell this story. Amanda may see it. My mother-in-law may see it. My sister-in-law won't see it. The first day we're in Hawaii, we're trying to figure out we're the first day everybody was there. So it was like the second day we were there. So I think my mom hadn't gotten there yet. Or maybe she would, but like her family had all gotten there. And her sister looked up and I said, I heard there's a good Mexican restaurant across the street. I said,
in Hawaii?
I said, look, I promise you it's not. It might be good by Hawaii standards, but
no.
I said, we live, and guess what? I was right.
Imagine that.
I was totally right. It wasn't like,
I'm sorry you had to endure that.
It wasn't terrible. Like it was it's one of those things that if you don't know, you'd be like, oh, this was a fine meal. Yeah. But if you know. And I was like, all right. And she was like, oh, you seem upset. I was like, I'm not upset. I'm just telling you that. And Amanda's like, look, I said, Carrie, we live in Mexico. We live there.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's not Mexico anymore, but it was. And it's just.
It is. We have culture.
We do. We have.
We're one of the few states blessed with culture.
And like, again, like in Tex-Mex and Cal-Mex and like they're all different a little bit and all wonderfully different. Mm-hmm. Like I love California Mexican food. I love New Mexico Mexican food. I love Arizona Mexican food. It's all different.
I'm not really into the Chipotle style with the New Mexico and Arizona. I can get with it, but it's not my favorite.
But I mean, like I like Mexican food. Like, I
love that.
Like I love all that. But like when you're in Hawaii, also like in Hawaii, let's eat stuff that's more Hawaiian.
Yeah.
But when we did that all the rest of the time, but I was like, okay, and they all liked it. But again, and she lives in Indiana. They don't know.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't have a clue.
They don't know. They have no idea. Number 5, Todd Golden. University of Florida, young, up and coming, can win in the SEC. This one probably too much of a reach because he hasn't done anything yet. But if you want probably the best of the young, up and coming guys, this is who I would go get.
He might not be the right guy this cycle, but the next cycle, he could probably build a resume to where he would be the perfect fit for that.
But then again, Florida is also going to be able to fight and keep him. So I do think there's going to be someone who hires, who starts playing buckyball, the other coach at Samford, next year. That's not Samford.
Yeah,
I think that's going to happen. He's still really young though, but I wouldn't put him on this list. No. But I think one day he's going to wind up with a Kentucky type job.
Probably.
I don't know. He might. Like I said, Todd Golden. Number 4, Greg McDermott. Look, this is an older coach. He's been at Creighton. He wins at Creighton. I don't know if he would leave Creighton. But
man, if Kentucky called and you can have the money and the resources behind it, and you've been able to get Creighton where you've been able to get Northern Iowa in the mix, I would definitely consider if I'm. He's a hell of a coach.
Yeah. He is. He's a great coach. He wins. He's not quite broken through yet, but I feel like that might be coming.
Yeah.
Which is also why you don't leave. Number 3. Sean Miller, which should probably be higher.
Nope.
Sean Miller. We've heard John Fanta said it, Sean Miller. Kevin Flaherty said it, Sean Miller. We've had some differing opinions on it, but I mean, come on. Like I think he bears looking out for there.
I love Sean Miller. I mean, I like Arizona basketball. I watched him from there just even before that, even when he was at Xavier the first time. Just he's a really good coach. I think his personality would kind of fit there. But I also think that on the contrary, Kendall did bring up some good points. It's just kind of a situation where whatever your preference is, but I think Sean Miller personally would do good there.
Yeah, I do.
If he went there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Number 2, Will Wade. Look, he's brash. Like, he fits. They would love his ass. They would love him. They would love him. They'd be mad because he hasn't done anything yet. Then he'd do something. They'd be like, oh, my God, he's perfect.
And he would pop off at him, too, and let him know about it.
He is so perfect for this job. He is so perfect for it. Brash.
Everything.
He's probably not perfect. He's probably not perfect to work with Mitch Barnhart. I think that's
maybe not, but
and look, that has to be. You have to have the alignment, right, to have true success. But man, I mean,
somebody's going to get him.
As crazy as their fans are, and as like passionate as they are, he would match their. He can get on their level.
Yes,
it's a hard thing to do. Cal got on their level for a while. Patino got on their level. Tubby was able to win post Patino because he's a good coach who stepped into a really good situation. I don't want to knock Tubby at all, but like
he did his thing.
He did his thing, but like those guys won, but they had him. Patino would have always had him had he never left. He would always had him, but he left. He went to the NBA, and the rest is history. But he could be on their level. Look, the reason that it's taken so long between Mac and Steve Sarkisian to compare that job again is Mac could get on the level. Mm-hmm. He could get on the level.
Yup.
John Mackovic couldn't. David McWilliams couldn't. Fred Akers was kind of on the level. He just wasn't as good of a recruiter as Darryl Royal was. So Fred Akers on the level, David McWilliams not on the level. Like, that's how it was. The reason guys are successful is they can meet their they can handle it. Their personality matches. Dabo's done a great job at Clemson, getting on level. Now I think he's starting to tilt off the level. But, Jim Harbaugh at Michigan figured those people out. Mm-hmm. And they hadn't been for a long time. And we'll see if Sherrone Moore can do the same thing. But I think this is Will Wade. I think he can get on their level. He can absolutely match it. To me, he's the Lane Kiffin of basketball.
That's a really
Lane Kiffin of basketball.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin of basketball. And you can, Lane Kiffin. And look, he hasn't done anything yet. Just like Will Wade hasn't done anything yet. But he's making waves and he's shaking things up. And he's smart enough to figure it out.
They're adaptive.
Yeah,
they can actually adapt with the times where a lot of people get stuck in and don't.
Will Wade was ahead of things.
Yes. Yes, he was.
He was well ahead of it.
Yes, he was.
Well ahead of it. Unabashedly well ahead of it.
He was.
And number 1, Billy Donovan. Look, if you can get Billy Donovan, you get Billy Donovan.
Yeah, you get him, but
I still the calendar of this is probably going to derail it.
I don't see. Look, I know he's not having success with the Bulls. I understand that.
Here's what I would think.
Come on.
If no one is hired in the next week, Billy Donovan has told him he's taking the job.
I would agree with that.
He's told them,
just wait it out.
Just wait it out. I'm taking the job. And then they can be like, well, we're expanding our search to include blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Look, this is the last day to in-person recruit anyway. Mm-hmm. Before it closes for a little bit. So it's not like they're not getting somebody by 10 o'clock tonight.
No, not going to happen.
Or unless they already have somebody. But like if Scott Drew told them no this morning, they weren't already negotiating with Plan B down the road. I mean, they had already talked to they've talked to more than one person. But if the job is offered to Scott, then the next person is at best in the same position Scott was in.
Exactly.
24 hours ago.
Yeah, it's a great whole thing.
So, which I don't think that they would probably move that fast. Like, usually between a no and the next one is a little bit longer. But we'll see. But look, if you can get Billy Donovan, you get Billy Donovan. Thanks to everybody who watched today. Tomorrow, we'll have Grayson on. We'll have Brian Howell talking Colorado football. We'll also have Ryan Andrade from RotoWire. Again, he will talk Masters with us, and he'll talk NCAA basketball and what he thinks about this Kentucky situation and Scott Drew and all of that. Plus more, I'm going to reach out to a couple of whales and see what we can get here. Maybe actual Shamu. No. Shamu, huge college football fan. People don't realize this about Shamu. Huge college football fan. Really, really upset about the new playoff format.
Throws down.
When you throw a football into the tank, he just spits it right back out. But we will we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks to everybody who watched. It's me and Garrett again. So wish us well.
Yes.
Retired stockbroker in particular today. You really brought the energy in the chat room. Have a nice dinner and a nice bourbon tonight. Not on me. Also, thanks to Hayden Maxwell for the super chat as well. That was great. Said that he drove to Stillwater for TCU and OSU and said it was just so weird all the way up.
Oh, I imagine.
Yeah.
We've made it.
It's too bad Emory isn't here to defend his home state.
I don't think he put up a fight.
Well, especially not for Stillwater. No. He wouldn't do it for Stillwater.
He hates school.
All right. Good night, everybody. 365 Sports Night at 10:30 in the CW. Talk to you then.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to